Minions have spawned.
And when you start to get a plus 120, start to get a negative 140, you're talking about very close odds. But Tori was the favorite. That surprised me, does it you? Costa's fight tapes. Where is he? If you're a new fan and you watched him compete with Adesanya, where he just simply never got going, he stood there like a heavy bag, got picked apart in the leg, got picked apart in the head. I mean, I understand all of that, but I don't know that you want to judge somebody's career over one night of action. It would seem as though you'd like to look at a body of work, and Paulo Acosta is damn near unstoppable. You want to know what my prediction was for Paulo when he lost to? I thought he was going to lead the weight class.
A battle worthy of the
timing of that is very relevant, right? For a couple of reasons. First off, when I talk about Paulo going to lead the weight class, that's when they were looking for him to win the 205 pounds. That's right after John Hill walked over the belt, the Rock opportunity for a guy, fresh young face, part two to this, Paulo Costa is a very hard
Ally has been slain.
Like a Greek god.
There will be peace in the frail world. I will forge it.
And while everybody comes into MMA with some kind of a background, they were all a wrestler, they were a boxer, jiu-jitsu guy, he came in as a power lifter. He was picking up really heavy things and putting them down. He spent a lifetime of trying to put on lean mass for competitive reasons.
I will not allow us to be divided. We are one.
One thing I don't love on Paulo Costa was the way I don't know why. I don't know why he didn't jump back to 194. I know that prior to the surgery and even like tried to have a doctor forge a note so we could go get these dinner, but remember when he was dealing with that, but that was prior to the contest. I haven't heard of him. So now I'm just left to guess. I'm not attempting to speculate one way or the other. I'm forced to have to guess was able to keep his weight down. I mean, Paulo Costa's greatest battle in his last one, it still wasn't the opponent. It was the scale the day before. So it's a relevant talking point. It's a relevant thing to keep your eye on. Now let's go look at the Tory.
I dream of a nation for my
favorite in this. If you go back and this is a striker in Paulo Costa versus a wrestler in Vittori. Your eyes are going to lie to you.
I will show them the power of an iceborn.
Paulo Costa is one hell of a wrestler. So it's a wash. You're going to have a real ball. You're going to have a really mixed martial arts contest. The champion is Adesanya weighed in with his opinion. If you're not going to listen to Adesanya on guys within his weight class who he's already competed with, who the hell are you going to listen to? And Adesanya did not make a
It is not the goddess
He did not say,
Avarosa's
"I'm
glory
leaning
I
towards
wish to
blood."
recapture.
He
It
just
is
said,
my
"All
people.
Costa wants one thing. Bring the storm right now. The second that bell rings, bring that tornado and get Vittori out of there. Vittori needs to do one thing. This is champ talking. Vittori needs to get to rounds 3 and 4. However you can do it. Stall. Move around. Clinch it. Buy yourself some time. Do not get in a firefight. Do not look to end this early. Look to
Move
get
position well, then the battle is won before
Now,
blood is drawn.
An enemy has been slain.
Captain Obvious just laid out a pretty good plan, right? To some degree. If you're Paulo Costa, what should you do? You're asking Adesanya, well, you should go out there and knock him out. Okay, I mean, okay, that would work, but it's still a compelling line because I also feel that your eyes are lying to you on that. I don't know if I can expect Paulo Costa gets tired. I've never seen it. It's not what happened when Adesanya fought him. There was no later. And if you go back and look at the Absolute War, one of the great middleweight fights ever was Paulo Costa versus Yoel Romero. You guys will recall, Yoel Romero lost that fight and became one of the best. His next fight is going to go against him, but he's so damn good. Yoel looks like the next best thing. Let's bring him off the bench. I don't have any better evidence for you. I have nothing else to argue for you. It's just when you tell me that Marvin's going to go take Paulo down and ground and pound him, I'm of course going to ask you, when have you seen that the willingness, the eagerness, and they gave him a bump on an example known as
the Southerners cannot imagine.
Paulo Costa, for some reason, took his oars out of the water and I don't know what it was. Is it meaningful in the fight? Look, they're damn near even money, but I would like to hear from you guys. I don't want to go put a jail curse on somebody without you backing me. Who are you taking? Paulo Costa or Marvin Story?
An ally has been slain. An enemy has been slain.
Guys, a few years ago, I wrote a weight loss book called The 4-Pack Revolution. The overriding theme in the book was simple. Every weight loss requires That's where our show sponsor Noom comes in. Noom is a consumer-led digital health platform that leverages a powerful combination of human coaches, psychology, and science to empower you to take control of your own health, not only your weight. Noom's Daily Left, quick, easy, and it will help you create your own custom plan. Colby came out and said the only reason he took this fight is because
Shut down.
Now that's another one where at first glance, I'm going to assume very good storytelling going on.
I hold
I'm only going to assume that because whether Dana's doing this deal directly, they're never going to tell you what they told the other stuff. Never. They don't want you that they don't. One of the reasons is they want you to know you can have an open dialogue. They're not going to take it over here. What's said over here is said over here. We do our job in the middle. So I only bring that to you because I think it's storytelling because Colby wouldn't know, but would it matter? That's an interesting piece of the story, and it's not totally out of line.
I do not seek the throne of Avarosa.
From Francis Ngannou's story, where Francis was offered the downside. Himself said there, and then his interim Usman, after everything that Usman's doing, would seem a little extreme. And if you're in Usman's shoes, it's not a matter if he's scared to do it.
I
hear that word.
They are all.
Not the mere scared, but the colloquialism in our space for scared. Can't say that when he's already done it. You gotta excite him. If he beats Masvidal, I think all of us would agree.
Death was the only possible outcome.
Fight is something totally different. Look, nobody can force the champion to get in. They just can't. Look at it right now. If Usman defeats Colby, you can't just force Usman. We gotta hear what Usman wants to do.
What is goodness? Trying to do better than your forebears. I am a warrior. I have given oaths to few.
Should
I
happen to
have
Leon.
taken
Something
oaths from
big
many.
should happen for Leon. We all agree.
Rampage.
What round? In what
An
fashion?
enemy has been slain.
Any controversy?
An ally has been slain.
Goes down. It would be feasible. Which would also take right this golden ticket that Edwards is saying he was told. It's like, Edwards, I wasn't on that call, man. Your business is your business. I'm not stepping there. But I would encourage you to reflect back. Are you sure you learned something more in line with we will try? You go do this and we will offer. We will attempt
I
to.
loved my mother. I
So there's some
loved my
moving
battle
parts of
sister.
170,
I
but it is
loved my
getting
people.
interesting.
It is
In all
because
fairness,
of
the
this
top guys
love
are
that I
coming back to
fight.
the
Your
table.
team has
And then you got
destroyed a
Gilbert
turret.
Burns dying to fight
An
anyway.
ally has been
Right?
slain.
You got Blahal Muhammad all of a sudden being an extremely exciting character, not just at 170, just in the sport. The splash that Blahal Muhammad has made, the bounce, he's you look at John Strickland where he went to
Turret plating will fall soon.
athlete in
Except
MMA
by us.
in the last 12 months, and I think the story's going to keep getting better. I like the. I don't have to know the facts. I don't have to totally know what exactly was Leon said. Give me your version. Good enough for me. Masvidal, was he really the victim as these hooligans came at him and the whole thing's caught on tape? Give me your version. Good enough for me. Entertain me. I need something between the punches and the kicks, and I feel for right now, the 170 pounders are
I was born to fight. All Freljordians are.
I'm a day late, but I'm not a dollar short. The story is still progressing.
All
Look,
that cross touches.
back
No.
up. Fury,
Do
Wilder.
not show mercy or weakness.
There's a knockdown. There's a count by the referee. You all understand that it's a count. What is you get my point. But that isn't official. It's not perfect. I came through the amateur wrestling scene. We had something called parterre. In parterre,
Your turret has been destroyed.
the rule book actually had that loose wording.
What is it?
In the rules,
lie.
you're given
It is to
15
reach
to 20
even
seconds.
when
What
you
does
are
that
late.
mean?
It is to give hope even
What is
when you
15 to
feel
20
late.
seconds? Because my math teacher, Mrs. Purack, at middle school would have told you that's
Your
17.5.
turret has been destroyed.
That is what is in between 15 and 20 seconds, but it was off the top of the referee's head. He's going to kind of look, he's going to kind of see if there's action there. He's going to give a good guess
Your
if something's
team
going to
has
happen.
destroyed
Or
An enemy has been slain.
you're the defensive guy, you've got to protect
Of our
somebody. Kind of
people
important to
hangs
know
in
how
the
long.
balance.
The rules and lessons, this might still stand today. I actually said 15 to 20 seconds. Okay. So
An
it's
enemy has been slain.
what a lot of people don't understand about boxing,
The fury of the
the count isn't only the referees, there is somebody outside the ring.
My people know only
Positioned
cold and
there,
hardship.
licensed by the
I
commission,
will teach them
whose
peace.
only job is to make sure that his count is in line with the referee's count. And if there's a great discrepancy, then we can have a back and forth, and maybe you even get an executive director involved. I don't know. In all fairness, I don't actually know if those two aren't in line, but I know they don't have to be. One can get to 10 while the other is just about to count, or vice versa, and whatever the in-ring official
My mother
will
loved
go.
me.
But he does
She
exist.
fought and died
Might
trying to
be
give
relevant
me
to the
a better
story.
life.
So, in the
So
Fury
I
Wilder
fight
fight,
Shut
and
down.
will die fighting
Knocked
to give
down.
all Avarosans
The person
a
who-
better life.
through the punt, the one who's knocked down must go to the furthest neutral corner. And I have a big problem with that word right there, but that is not the hill I choose to die on. Why it has to be the furthest and why it has to be neutral. I mean, why you think you're going to get a fighter
Reveal our way.
who can't count to 4
We
to know
will
what the
unite the
furthest
Freljord.
or neutral corner is, let alone in the heat of battle? Not at all my point, but I digress. The opponent did
An enemy has been slain.
started. Outside counter. Everything is just as it's supposed to be. Opponent went to the furthest neutral corner, but left it. He left the corner. He walked forward. I can only imagine why. It comes back to the point that I took a moment to make for you. That a fighter simply doesn't know where he is. In all fairness, you just don't. I got neutral and the furthest one away. And how do I measure this as opposed to that? I mean, it just starts to get weird. And then what does in the corner mean? Am I grabbing something? What's there? You know what I'm talking about? Where it's kind of similar with the wordy damage. Like it's kind of one of these things. And then a fighter who's caught up in the moment, you're doing everything from exhausted to being discombobbled. In addition,
see how
with just
close they
excitement,
can get.
just pure adrenaline. Maybe you want to, maybe you got to take a couple steps in to hear what number that referee's out. Right? There's a number of reasons why you might leave the corner. Even in the boxing matches I had, I didn't have to do those things. So I don't really know. I'm watching and I'm attempting to guess, and I think I'm being logical.
This
The rule
you.
clearly says if the fighter is to leave the neutral corner, the referee is to stop the count. That's very clear. And a couple of the examples I gave you, man, it's almost like wordplay. Furthest and neutral corner. What the heck does it mean to be in the corner? And in wrestling, you got 15 to 20 seconds, and it's a parterre position. That's really clear. The referee has left the furthest neutral corner. He is to stop the count. That's in writing. That's absolutely in writing, and that's what the referee did. The referee stopped the count, ordered that athlete back to the corner. If you're not familiar with that intricacy within the rule, which in all
Together,
fairness,
we
how
are
would you
strong.
be? How would
Together,
you possibly
we are
know?
Avarosan.
Between the IBF, the WBA, the WBC, but between all of these boxing commissions you have, how would you possibly know all the intricacies? I wouldn't blame you, but the announcers that are calling it, that are left there to educate you, they also don't know them. And the one guy that pops in and maybe does know it, doesn't think to familiarize you. It's just the way that it goes. So all I'm trying to do, I'm not calling out Daniel, I'm not pointing out.
Gods and spirits guide for our lives.
Outside man has to be holding on to so that we can identify who's in and who's out. What is the work? Even this is identified to the athlete, to the official, to the audience. Boxing works it that way, but so whatever in the corner means with rotation, if you take 2 steps in the opposite way, if you do, the referee stop
An ally has been slain.
instructed him to return. I only bring it to you so we can see the conspiracy behind us. It was a fair adjudication. Even in my life, even done in boxing.
The bow is my will given
How
form.
one guy can get
I
a
am
count
it.
to
It
10,
is me.
they only get to 9, but 16 seconds elapsed, right? We've seen that. I can tell you one off the top of my head. I can't remember the time. It was Buster Douglas versus Mike Tyson. There was the world's slowest count. And I remember that happening. And the referee who did know the rules, I would trust, is able
Face
to
for
pretend.
evil.
This referee plays the masses. This is just Tokyo. It's like something crazy along this line, and this fight happened. And it was a walk slowing down to get life back. The referee looked what he was witnessing, and he tried to look for the corruption. This is where the corruption comes. The corruption comes to allow worse play life. What does it mean to be in the corner? What does it mean to leave the corner?
I dream of the day after
Now,
the tribes are
you
unified.
do
I
want to mess
dream
with
of
the count.
no
That's not what
longer
happened.
needing to lead.
That's not what happened here. But if I leave it that, I have nothing to talk to you guys about, right? I'm trying to discuss a further point. You just deem somebody, and all of a sudden the referee can look up like he's Herb Hefner. But you're a guy back who hasn't been in the first place. You see the problem? You see where it becomes a little bit more helpful if the words are a little bit more clear? Go to the furthest neutral corner. Well, I got to do geometry while I'm out here. Why don't you tell me which one that is? Okay, great. What does it mean to be in the corner? And if we establish that, then we can, as reasonable people, also determine that 2 steps
An
were
enemy
taken
has been
out
slain.
of that corner.
In
By
a
Wild,
killing spree.
while there was in a corner, he took 1 step, he took 2 steps out of that corner. Even assume Wilder had the he took 2 steps out of
Because
it.
all
Referee
Felgorians are one
was
people.
right. My friends at BioOptimizers have put together a truly irresistible offer that's only good during the month of October. Here's the deal. You will get a full 30 days of their enzyme supplement called Masszymes, plus a free copy of their book from 6 to 2% and a free copy of their brand new carnivore cookbook. This bundle is valued at $65. Just fill out a short form and cover a small shipping fee. It's an incredible deal. Masszymes is a powerful, best-in-class, daily enzyme supplement that improves digestion, reduces gas, provides relief from constipation. But remember, a 30-day supply of Masszymes is not all you're going to get with this special offer. The book, From Sick to Superhuman, gives you the tools.
Move quickly. Position well. The battle is won before blood
It's
is
the
drawn.
gift that just keeps on giving. 3-piece and a soda. How somebody within the MMA space has not sold a t-shirt that says that with a likeness of George Washington. Deal with the TRO and deal with the lawsuit later. You could have cleaned up. This was
You do not
years
aim
ago.
above the
Listen to what Masvidal said.
You fire knowing where
Today,
the target will
okay?
be.
I'm going to quote,
This
I'm going
is
to read
vision.
this from a teleprompter. These are exactly his words. When you're talking all this crap and somebody gets in your face, if you're not hesitant about it, I'm walking towards you, you're walking towards me. That's coward stuff. He originally wanted to call the
I will
cops
show
on me,
them the
but
power
what
of an
would have
ice
happened?
cream.
That would have looked against his brand, the tough guy. Originally, they wanted to press charges on him. Effing altercation. I'm here doing my own interview. Doing my I just got knocked out of the night. And I don't give a F about you, Edward. I am in my interview. It's my time to shine. I'm trying to steal that. Nobody gives a F about you in your own hometown. You just had a fight that nobody was even talking about because it was so effing boring, and it's just he's just a clout chaser. That's all he's ever been. Poetry by Masvidal, who has maintained from Jump Street and has continued 3 years later.
Your team has destroyed a turret.
We must press on.
That this was not video game.
An ally has been Dominating.
We only have this as evidence. All the evidence we have is that 4 punches were thrown. All 4 were thrown by Masvidal, and all 4 landed on Edwards. Can we reasonably
My tribe will
conclude
bring peace
who
to
was
the
the
north.
aggressor and who was the
South
victim?
should
Could we do
fear
that?
us.
Now, that's without having video evidence. Now, this was a beautiful thing when Masvidal did it because it was such street smarts, okay? Somebody, and it's whoever goes first. Did you guys know that in an assault case, they will only charge 1 person? You might have just seen this recently with all due respect. But the idea, okay?
I hold
They'll
my
only
heart.
1 person, so it's whoever speaks up first. Now, if you were to ever do an assault that is wide open, purely to one thing, which is state of mind at the time. What was your state of mind? So if you come out and say fear just by example, that a professional
I dream of a
fighter
nation for my people.
who had just won to his own point knockout of the night, who was just successful in doing his own interview throughout the world to believe that he was scared, right? Even remember what Masvidal did. He retold the story and he said, I was so scared. These hooligans came up to me. Nobody uses the word hooligans, but when they do, it's either something special. And I wish hooligans would make a comeback. Masvidal hadn't heard hooligans in 10
Glory
years.
to the
I haven't heard it in the 3 years since. Masvidal said this in
Give
the
my
media at
people
the
the
time.
resilience
I
of
was
your
scared.
wilderness and the
These
fury of your
hooligans
storm.
came up on me. I didn't know. I figured they were getting ready to jump me. I mean, it was one of these things. Nobody knew what to do and nothing was done. Masvidal played so well. There was nothing. He was not admitting fault.
There will be peace in the territory.
Which we can all agree was
I
not
will
polite.
forge it.
We could probably go as far as walk on, wait for his time. He didn't need to say
Hearthbound
he was going
and
that way.
Iceborn,
Masvidal
Spiritwalker
left the
and
interview,
Fireborn.
pursued
All
him.
Fjordians are
Threw
mine.
4 punches, landed the ball, comes up with a great marketing line. Beautiful work.
Let us feel the coming of change. Granted.
By the way, that Mike Jackson and Leon is not a good one. There could be extradition. It was a different country. It could have been a really big deal. Sorry about that, and thanks for... Instead of him doing that, right, he kind of tipped that. I had this happen to me, guys. I
They
mean, I
think
could
me
personalize
cold.
to some level. I
have seen things the Southerners only imagine.
Dust up happens. I get struck by a coach named Tito.
Victory!
That is assault, and that is documented. And they came to me. I didn't go to anybody, but they had come to me. You have to understand. If I wanted to arrest Tita, stop his ability to come to America. He would have got flagged, his passport. It's a whole thing if you have an assault charge against you. Even, let's just say, he got out of it. That isn't the point. They would have stopped his ability to come to America, and that's what he does for a living. He coaches and corners guys. That's not equitable, in my opinion, and I'm the one that gets to decide. It was my head. I'm the one that got struck. I knew the circumstance. I did not think that was equitable to take his livelihood. I thought, hey, Chael, sorry I did that to you. We're good. But that's my choice, and that's what I thought would be enough, and I did not want anything to happen to him. So it is relevant that Leon didn't do this to George. He could have really caused him a problem. Could have caused him a big problem. I don't know for sure even if that's accurate, because I don't know that Masvidal would have known. Marvin Vettori has a fight to be a main event. Weighed in of all things, Paul Paul Felder. Paul Felder being a commentator, I've got to tell you guys, I cannot think of, and I'm a great historian on this stuff, I cannot think of athlete versus commentator before. Now, I don't mean that these guys are actually going to fight or they're going to go and compete. I'm talking about there was something compelling about the athlete calling out the commentator, who in this case is Paul Felder. And this has been tested. Somebody somewhere called out Cormier, but it made a little bit more sense in I can't remember the whole story, but you guys might be familiar with it. You can refresh my memory, but it was something like Cormier commented on a match, but it was his teammate. Like it was a Khabib fight or it was a Duran Win fight. It was his own teammate, and he was trying to be unbiased, but had a biasness. And the other guy that either Duran or Khabib or something like this was competing with his friend, teammate, or even himself, Daniel Cormier. So it has happened before, but everybody likes Daniel so much, it just went away. But I remember that. I remember that as a point of reference. I mean, you never know what's going to sell. You never know what's going to work. There's something here about Marvin, Daniel Cormier, Joe Rogan. Guys, I'm a day late, but I'm not $1 short. The story's still progressing. Look, Marvin calling out Paul Felder that works enough that I'm in a beautiful studio. This video is sponsored by our friends at Ritual. But it seems in line, right? You always want to say all the right stuff. Well, innocent until proven guilty. Let's let due process, I guess. Or a guy's accused of punching a DJ in front of a ton of witnesses. 3 weeks ago, I saw him do the same thing to some guy named Machine Gun Kelly. 3 years before that, he hit an old man in a bar in a pub in Ireland, right? I mean, at some point, it just kind of starts to go in line where you can do the right thing. You should put your hand down. I don't really have as big of a problem with some kind of a street dust up happening and a guy defending himself. I don't love the idea. It is not a fair fight. Right? If you have a trained killer and he's with some guy, that's the dude's resume is some guy, and on your resume it says trained killer, it would seem as though you've got to be a bit of a dick to throw a punch. I mean, in all fairness, if you had to get in a street fight with somebody, guys, choose me. You're not going to win, but you leave in one piece. I am skilled enough at it, I will not have to hit you. Hitting you involves trying to hurt and or damage you. I don't need to. I have other skills. I do not need to hit you a single time. I don't need to loosen your teeth. I don't need to break your jaw. In all fairness, and I'll tell you, I came up that way. You always want to have appropriate gear training, right? You want to have big gloves, you want to have shin pads on, your knee pads, it makes you smell, but you always have a mouthpiece. If you had none of those things and it was your first day, you could go spar Randy Couture, you would be fine. Randy Couture was the sitting heavyweight champion of the world, and he had such an incredible control. He would maul you. He would do MMA. No, make no mistake, he is there to maul you. You did not know how to defend yourself. Thrown hands at, hit the old man who wasn't moving, missed Machine Gun Kelly by light years. I'll give him a break on that. He was on crutches, and then connected with a DJ like timeout. Aside from that being weird, and aside from that being a very bad skill set, that's a very, very bad skill set. If you have to hurt your nemesis who's untrained in the streets. I would never say Conor doesn't have the right to defend himself or anybody else, or just because he was a champion at this, he doesn't get the right to defend himself. Yes, he does. But I will have to question why you got to try to hurt the guy. You don't have other ways to diffuse this? You got to be kidding me. And moreover, I've never got around the fact that Conor was at the award show. Whatever happened with that little nerd Kelly, Megan Fox, the DM, those are weird people, man. Whatever. You're one of these Hollywood socialites that's got to get together in a little fitness group, throw a party, get put on TV, bring a bunch of really rich and really famous people together to then give awards awards to the rich and famous people, voted on by the other rich and famous people. The whole thing's weird. The fact that Connor was there means he's not one of us. I don't know how many I've gone to. No. I'm a man of the people. I'll go to one of those award shows they invite me to when you guys, my people, come to those award shows. That's when we'll go. Otherwise, we'll stick with our community and we'll go to the World MMA Awards once a year. I have a tremendous problem with that. And now I'm finding out that he's at a club. So you got a grown-ass man with kids at home at a club. That's a problem.
To the briny deep.
You have a grown-ass man with kids at home on crutches at a club. That's a problem for me. You have a grown-ass man, kids at home, the crutches, the hobbling around, gets in a dust-up with a DJ. Throws heat at the guy. And then the guy is on TMZ the next day. My biggest problem with the whole part of the story is that this dude was talking to TMZ the next day. It's the only part that makes me think, well, maybe this didn't happen. I watched Conor McGregor hit Floyd Mayweather, and I saw the reaction. I watched Conor McGregor hit the greatest featherweight of all time named Jose Aldo. I saw what happened. I watched Conor McGregor hit one of the great fighters of all time, and Eddie Alvarez. I saw what happened. Why isn't that happening to Machine Gun Kelly, the old man, and this DJ? Come all of a sudden, these guys can take Conor's punch. Right, the whole thing really does stem other questions. So, okay, let's make a case for Conor. I've been a Conor defender for 5 years now. Why am I going to stop now? Let's make our case for him. Conor did not want to be at the club. He didn't want to be away from the wife. He didn't want to be away from the kids. This is a paid gig. They brought him in. They gave him some money to be there. He broke bad. Drinking a little of that Irish 12. He broke bad. DJ got a little mouthy. Conor wanted new kids on the block to play. He keeps on blaring out Metallica, something along these lines. Conor's got to throw hands up. Well, now you're being more of a jerk. If you're a
all the world on one
you
L.
guys are teammates. That means you work together in line with the security and the bouncers and the guy that works at the door and the cocktail folks and the whole bit. So now you're being a bad teammate. You're being a bad teammate because you got a check to come here. You're on the clock but decided to get not great. Or you're a nerd. A nerd that came hobbling into the club with a cast on his foot. It's just, these aren't my kind of people, man. This is weird. The DJ's got every right to take action, and the DJ said that. He said, I did not deserve to be hit, and I got hit, so I'm suing him. He makes a perfectly good case. This got tested in the world of boxing. Mike Tyson walked outside one time ever, and it was another pro fighter. The guy called him out. The guy was a pro, a top 10 ranked pro. Guy knew how to take care of himself, wanted to get a street fight with Tyson. Tyson walked outside, hit the guy one time, and destroyed him. Anything that you've seen Tyson do with a glove on, exemplify that by 5. Now, the dude was solid. The dude refused to sue because he told the truth. I called him out. I would have done it to him. He got to me for fair and square. Tyson shattered his hand. Qualify as a shatter in medical science. It must be broken in 3 or more places. So one punch from Tyson with had a wrapped and gloved hand shattered his hand, but also shattered this guy's face. My only point being, and that guy was also a top 10 ranked pro, and that's what happened with no gloves on.
Welcome to Summoner's Rift.
My tribe will bring peace
Not
to the
making
north.
light of anything.
The
I'm not
south
making light of
should
anything
fear
at all.
us.
30 seconds until minions spawn.
Of the old man in the pub, and yet you guys know that's how he was identified. We never got his name. The media referred to him as the old man in the club. Some guy with Machine Gun Kelly, a dork, and now a DJ. But there's no shattered hands. There's no anybody going to the hospital. There's no ending of a debate. There's no silencing of the crowd.
Minions have spawned.
Why did Mike Tyson end it with one punch?
This outfit makes
And the
total
guy
sense. Just
Conor
look
hit
closer and think about it
He's
less.
doing an interview with TMZ an hour later.
war,
confession.
my
I love cereal, but to be honest, none of the stuff that gives me food. Until now. Magic Spoon, a new breakfast cereal, has 0 sugar, 14 grams of protein, only 4 net grams of carbs, and 120 calories with each serving. Best of all, Magic Spoon. Jail, Sun, and Show, and yes, I know how disgusting it is that the show is named after me, but that's the show I was doing, which, by the way,
Gods and
would appreciate
spirits
you
guide
listening to.
us.
I don't think I've ever
but
asked
our
you guys for
lives
anything. Do me a
are our
personal
own.
favor and go to that show. My email is directly to you with Brett. And Brett is one of the greatest does not
Spirit
get
Walker
scared.
and Fire.
Brett
All shall join.
whatever he wants to ask. And it's a very interesting way to go through sports interviews. Brett looks great. Talk about the character. Where does the person in
First
where does
blood.
the character begin?
I do not seek the throne of Avarosa.
I myself, I turned it up to 11. Now, what's magical about that Colby Covington was performing while answering the question about his performance. Like only a true master
Quickly
could.
now.
Character. All it's done of coming this far before bell time, you throw your hands up, I don't want to make me mad at me. I was just fooling around. I do remember the night that Mike Tyson played it. It was a tremendous build-up. Separated. I remember this. I tried to talk you back. Sharing it was such an effective line that 30 years later, I still remember what he said. He's not going to eat your children. I don't even know what that means. But these were such aggressive lines that 30 years later, I
Blessed three
remember them.
sisters, give me strength to
I
endure
think gets
what I
stomped out
must.
by
Give me
Lynn
courage
before
to
he leaves
fight
the
who
ring.
I
And
must.
I remember sitting at home as a guy who paid $50 wanting my money back. I have been lied to. That is straight wrong. There is no industry in the world that you can sell something lying to the customer, admit only after they paid for it that you were lying and not get refunded.
We are all
You did that with an automobile?
blood of
The guy
blood.
tells you it's a Lexus. You buy it, you find out it's a Toyota. The Attorney General will meet you at that car lot the next morning at 9 a.m. and you will be unwinding that deal. I only offer as an example. I don't do that. They're working me.
All that
All the way to the end. Kiefer Sutherland does not pop out in the final episode of
The
24.
day
Hey, my name's not Jack Bauer. My name's Kiefer Sutherland. It doesn't work that way. You play it until the final credits roll. So as I was watching Brett pin Colby down, and Brett had him. Brett had him with very basic. But aren't you this far because of what you did? People hate you, but don't they hate you because you manufacture? I mean, Brett is asking the tough
a
stuff.
battle worthy of the
Colby was
failure.
floating right through it. It was beautiful. It was beautiful to watch Covington not get rattled. While watching this interview, I had a bigger thought. Nothing to do with the dialogue that happened. The thought that I just got confronted with is this the first time I've seen Colby
Lead our way.
trying to fight Kamar Usman.
Move quickly. Position well.
Colby
And
is
the battle is
absolutely
won
locked down.
before
He
blood is
absolutely
drawn.
focused. Make no mistake what this is about, guys. This fight is not for the current welterweight championship of the world. This fight represents Usman, who is chasing George St. Pierre's ghost. For Usman to go to the only other level that he
An
possibly
ally has
can
been
when his
slain.
level is
I dream of a nation for my
which is an
people.
opinion by the masses. And for him to get there, he's going to have to do what George did, which is not only clean out the division, he's going to have to do it a second time, and that's what he started. That is absolutely Usman Masvidal part 1. Covington part 2 is about. It looks as though
There
down the
will be
road
peace
it
in
could
the
be Leon
trail.
Edwards versus
will
Usman
for
part 2. And it's a big damn piece. And then you look at
Ally has been slain.
of that division. There is not going to be a part 3, no matter how many guys
Avarosa. I say
Colby
I
beats.
hear her voice.
No matter how
I
much
hear
Colby
only my
proves I am
mother,
the true number one
and more
contender,
of
there
her
is not
passing.
going to be a part 3 without a variant outcome in one of the first two. So there is high pressure here. And pressure always dealt with correctly is what makes diamonds. We all understand that, but I'm watching Colby do
Seek peace, but bring the spirit of war.
Covington is fighting for the second time. When he fought him for the first time, median heavy lifting was done by Colby. So Colby's going to look at be cautious, but he's looking at his partner. Even if it's his enemy, even if they're going to go all the way, I'm going to take everything that you have, I'm going to take everything I've done 10 interviews today, I've done 2. That's not equitable and that's
They
not
think
fair.
me
I'm
cold.
out.
I have seen things Southerners
You do no interviews, Southerners do no interviews. I made this mistake last time. I was doing media skip row. So it's a real piece of it. It's a piece of it because it's showing and understanding by Colby. Just said,
An ally has been
My
slain.
people know only cold
cold
and
hard
hardship.
reality.
I will teach them
A colder
peace.
reality is most people never get this far. Colby was an interim champion, never lost, and one day he will no longer be interim champion.
No
How
fate
in the
written
hell does that work?
except by us.
Colby Covington was the interim champion. You can try to discredit interim all you want. I don't really care what word comes in front of it. Champion. You can put 10 words in front of it. It still ends with champion. He was champion, did not lose.
Lead the target.
That happened. I'm not making that up. I'm not doing wordplay. That happened. Where was the community? I don't know where the community is. In all fairness, us. I don't know where the community is on the DMF side.
Know this! I am back!
That's not the way it works. I don't try to see how this happened to me. You're telling me this happened to me. I don't world title fight in the WEC. I was the challenger. The champion missed weight. The fight happened the next day. Under the same rules with the same 2 guys. I won. I didn't get to become the champion. It became a non-title match. I mean, it matters. It matters. How does it matter?
I ask for your wisdom, first builder of Orange Road.
I'll tell you guys something. Real tough. I debated on whether I was going to bring this to you. You guys are well aware of the massacre of the terrible actions that happened in Columbine. Right after Columbine, there was a copycat. It happened. I was in town when it happened.
Together
The school
we
that
are
happened.
Avarosa.
It was Colby Covington. And nobody's ever asked Colby about it. And they didn't ask him because they're polite. They did not ask him because it's such a simple
Strike
problem.
quickly.
They didn't ask him because they don't know. I would have to check my own calendar to know. I believe Colby was one of
When you say Avarosa, I hear my mother and her dreams.
I believe that's right. If I'm wrong, Colby was there. I believe he missed it. I thought I could do this. Hold that thought. Guys, we gotta talk Aspen Lab. 2 different thoughts for me. By the way, did you guys know I got catfished by Aspen Lab? Have I ever told you that
I am
story?
Felyordian.
So I have a
family
very
and
soft
ally
spot in my
has been
heart
slain.
because I'm pen
Oh.
pals with Aspen Lab. We go on something the kids call Twitter, and we DM. This pen pal relationship has gone for about a year. In my DMs, whoever was copy and pasting and sent it to a bunch of people, copy and pasted to me, Aspen Lab, but in the third person.
Untold by
So
heart.
now I realize I'm not talking to Aspen Lab. I have no relationship with Aspen Lab. I have a soft spot in my heart for whatever PR person is running Twitter either way. It's relevant that you know that stuff. It's relevant that you know that when I speak about Aspen, I am favorable. I like her. But I don't know her at all. I've been texting with somebody else. Either way, relevant to the story because the Aspen land sorry. She didn't like, you know, the cow was the other thing, but and Ashley was 91.
Praise the leader who unifies, forgetting it is only the unity that
other
matters.
athletes who have missed I can remember specifically Anthony Rumble Johnson. Now, he not only played Dr. Rumble, it was a conjunction where his opponent agreed to face him anyway and he lost. So now he's got 2 fights. But it is fair for any Aspen Lad fan or catfishers out there to wonder, does she have a place in the organization? Guys, you're not 100%. Your height, everything with the scale that says you're not 135 pounds. Hold that thought because time with John Jones. And I'm only bringing you John because it's the biggest name that you guys would know who left a weight class but took a meaningful amount of time
I will
to
not
bulk
allow
up.
us to be divided.
And I realize that's why we're not doing apples to apples here, but it is a real thing, at least within the psychology of the athlete, that they are big enough for no one knows what that means. And there's only one way to find out, which is to actually test it in competition. I think John Jones could have been the heavyweight champion of the world by now, but he doesn't. I bring it to you to go back to Aspen. She did not believe she was a 45-pounder, and not only is she now a 45-pounder, she has to do it on 3 weeks, no bulk phase. So she's physically gonna do something different. She is psychologically up against it because she, for whatever reason, doesn't believe that's where she belongs. Should I mention, she has not studied her opponent according to her. She is not familiar with her opponent according to her.
Confuse
She did not realize it was a main event when she accepted the fight, which means she didn't know she was going to be thrown in there for 5 rounds. There was a lot for Aspen to have to go up against. There really was. And I don't expect you to cry and give
An
me your
enemy
word.
has been slain.
It's okay. I just want you to also acknowledge it was a lot. And she did it. Like a fighter. The term fighter is the most corrupted term of my lifetime. It's now about that.
Ally has been slain. You have been slain.
There is good news to my She did not believe whether it was she was strong enough, or she was or she was big enough, or out of that competition better than she went into it. And there's not a lot of people that you can say that about in defeat, and it was a fairly one-sided
An
defeat,
enemy
which also
has been
becomes
slain.
the final leg to this story. Her coach, I felt, was honest with her. Going into the 4th round, she got on mic. In a very votable moment, would you guys ever want to use your private competition ever? Now imagine that you're mic'd up, you realize you're mic'd up, but you've coached 100 rounds mic'd up, and ESPN never picked it up once. Never played. You're gonna feel that you're in a private moment. Can we agree on that?
The Freljord
So
shall
whatever
unite.
comes out of you, good, bad, or indifferent, how would you like to be judged? And I was a little surprised at how much judgment there was of this. Very honest with her. Again, 3 rounds for Aspen has not won a single round. She's throwing 1 punch at a time instead of punches and bunches, which is what the coach said to her. Quit throwing 1 shot, go out there. You need to turn it up.
I
You
was
need to
born
stop
into
her. You're down
poverty.
3 rounds. We've
All
got 2 left. It's
Freljordians
simple
are.
math at this point. I agree with the coach. Not only do I agree with the coach, anybody that was involved fighting thinking the same thing the coach just verbalized. If any of you acted on this fight with drafting, yelling, hey Aspen, there's only 2 rounds left, quit throwing one punch, you've got to stop. You would have been saying the same thing the coach said. In addition to that, and I realize he wasn't polite. I realize these weren't kind things. But, and there's a huge but, and until I'm confronted with evidence otherwise, I'm going to
We must
believe
press on.
that Aspen likes to be Wayne would tell me, hey, when I say this, here's what I'm seeing. And I would have him the other way. Hey, and I was more of a positive guy. Let's be
An
positive.
ally has been slain.
Timmy
I
tell
will
me
show
I'm winning
them
rounds
the
and I'm
power
losing.
of
It's
an
just one of these
iceborn.
situations that personalize it, but everybody has that discussion with their coach. It's a major part of the team. How are we going to communicate on fight night? And unless I'm given any evidence to the contrary, I'm going to believe that that coach did what is in line with his athlete. Aspen does not appear
When I
to be
say
mad about
Avarosa,
it. She's still
I
got a
hear my
beautiful
mother.
record.
Enemy
She's now at the
killing
appropriate
spree.
class. She's in the 5-round club. I truly think, whether I got catfished or not, I think Aspen,
Your
for
team
having
has
gone through
destroyed
this
a
process,
turret.
I am more excited now to watch them.
Bless us, Ildhark, Warden of Sacrifice. Protect
There's
my
something
husband.
that will your
Protect my
happiness
people.
or preventing
If my
you from
death
achieving your
pleases you,
goals.
let it
I've
sustain
used a
my
professional
tribe.
to help me perform my best in the cage. Now, our show sponsor, BetterHelp, can help you perform better in life. BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own mental health with the help of an experienced professional. Charles Oliveira has become the most
Leave the
disrespected
target.
champion in the UFC currently. There is nobody that has more guys talk about, like, take Adesanya. I can play this game with anybody you want. Take Adesanya. You have 2 or 3 guys within the UFC saying, let me fight him.
ally
Which
has
is an
been
excellent
slain.
option, by example, is saying it will be different. I underestimated
Together,
the first.
we are
As
are
far as the trash
Avarosa.
talk, as far as putting your finger in somebody's chest, that is the hardest thing Brunson has said. This will be different. I underestimated him the first time. That's interesting for me. It's enough, in all fairness, but that's not disrespectful to Adesanya.
Your turret has
at
been
all.
destroyed.
You have Cannoneer and Adesanya seem to actually get along, and Adesanya would like Cannoneer to try to fight him because he appreciates it. Okay, fine. Marvin genuinely felt he could beat him, came at him pretty hard, but got in there and fought his ass off. There wasn't a disrespect. I'll leave Colby out of it, sure. Colby's been disrespectful. But the next couple of guys in line are saying they believe they should get the shot.
I am a
They're not
warrior.
disrespectful. It's just like
I have taken oath to men.
Volkanovski, same thing. Amanda Nunes. I mean, you go right through the list. The only one where multiple ones are straight up disrespected is Charles Oliveira. And I don't have an overarching point. I have an observation. Because when I see Charles Oliveira, I see something
I do
special.
my best work from afar.
I see a very special talent who could have wilted against Michael
Fighter mark eventually.
And just to get
Enemy killing spree.
look at all the heavy lifting that Oliveira did. And I understand that his career is not unblemished. I understand he's not even defeated in this game. He wasn't perfect.
There will be
was?
peace in the Freljord.
Aside from
I
Khabib,
will
who
forge
in the
it.
hell's was? It's very relevant. I mean, you got Gaethje coming after him. Chandler's been nice, but a little bit dismissive of him. Poirier, who's about to fight him, tried to fight somebody else or something along these lines.
An ally has been
Poirier's literally
slain.
right. His number 1 dance partner is broken in 2, smoking dope in a Rolls Royce somewhere in Florida right now with that t-shirt on.
Let's see how close they can get.
And it puts Charles in a tough spot. Charles finally responded today, and it was very low fodder. Very low fodder. He said, Gaethje's just talking to get attention. And it wasn't really a fire back. It's not the kind of thing. I
An enemy has
You
been slain.
got tickets for it. You got t-shirts. You got
An enemy has been
You don't have to do a
slain.
whole lot of talking. That's
Enemy
true.
killing spree.
I don't love
What
it. I
is
prefer
goodness
you're
but
out there. I
trying
like
to
the
do
Tyson
better than your
Fury method
forebears?
myself. I like to be entertained. I like a commodity aside from the unified rules. I like something else there, but I can live with it. JG is coming to you sincerely. He does not buy Oliveira as the champion. JG is about to fight a guy that just lost to Oliveira. I mean, you know what that means? You know the pressure JG's putting on his.
Your team has
Gaethje's gonna
destroyed
say
a
that
turret.
Oliveira is not legitimate, and Gaethje doesn't beat
The day
Chandler.
our
who
tribe
Oliveira beat. You see the
Those
problem?
will
But
tremble.
Gaethje, he just and I think there's something there with all these Oliveira hasn't beaten 8 guys in a row. One of them being the former interim champion, and Tony Ferguson. One of them being for the undisputed championship, of which he now has.
You do not aim a bow at the target.
And
You
55
fire
is
knowing where the
hard
target
as
will
hell,
be.
by the way.
This is
That is
vision.
iron on top of iron. When you are in the absolute, unquestioned hardest weight class, 155 pounds is for sure the deepest weight class. If you rise to the top of that, you are amongst the best of the race.
I hold it life. I hold it.
Hardest weight class to be dismissed. I'm not making an accusation. I'm verbalizing an observation, but I would like to know what you guys think. I think they're trying to get attention. That's what the champ said. They're pining in position.
What is it to lead?
Become number one
It is to
contender
lie.
see
Shut
what's
down.
next.
It is to
That
preach
could be
caution
true.
even when you are elated. It is to give hope even when you
But the
feel
guys
none.
who are speaking up have never done that at any other point in their career, and to me, I their opinion, but I think they're being sincere.
I am a war mother, a chieftain, only because no one else will do what must be done.
Your team has destroyed a turret.
Do not seek the throne of Avarosa.
There's a lot, because the first thing that we have to suspend is reality. The only way to know who a true champion is to have a
We must
competitive
press on.
Olympic shield fight. Everybody on Earth that raises their hand is allowed to compete. Now, you'll have different levels and you'll have different events before you finally get to the actual Olympics, where they will have eliminated most of the field.
Destiny.
But either way,
I have always hated that word. It is a
everybody who
worm
wants
that
an
ruins
opportunity
lives
can
and
try,
murders
which is why the
innocents.
last man
It is a
standing
deceiver
is the
and
champion.
bringer of woe.
There has never been an Olympic Games in history, and you guys know this. You've never done it. You've never heard anybody else do it. Your friends have never done it. Where you lean over and watch somebody say, "Hey, I could have done that. I said it." It's just never happened. There's too much respect to the artist. The one time we had Layla Ali on the show, Layla spoke about the world champion
I
boxer.
dream of for my people.
I've always wondered if I really would. I wish that I could have gone through the Olympics, because in our sport, talking about boxing, that's the only way to actually know, where there's an actual process, where the community stands back and acknowledges, for this day, for this moment, you are the
Spirit
fighting
walk
because you
and
don't have any
fireball.
An ally has been slain.
fighting way outside the fight.
Dominating.
balance for that is you have a man in chief, plus another my friend, Carlos. Now, when I tell you that it's very hard to convince anybody who the actual world champion of combat is, right? We saw what Mike Tyson went through. Just avoided the advantage. Real simple. If you are the true #1 contender, you would have no problem fighting anybody along the way. The true #1 contender can beat everybody in the world and has
Your team has destroyed a turret.
them and you go on to become the world champion. For that to have any level of size, the suspension of reality by the viewer. You would beat everybody else. You'd beat them up a second time if you needed to. You'd beat up 2 or 3 in a month if that's what was called for.
The Freljord shall
I
unite.
want Carla to get this. She's a former world champion. She's done such a great job, and none of this is going against Carla. I need to name that you guys know this exact example at this very moment. That's ever waited for a championship, particularly after they get to media and say they were strategic enough to not come out and say it. When you say it in the media, anything you do in the media is negotiation. If you come out and you say anything, you are now negotiating publicly.
Reveal our way.
The only reason I say that strategy doesn't work
I
is
will
the
show
UFC,
them the
nobody,
power of
in
an
my
iceborn.
belief, can reward taking your oars out of the water. The #1 rule in this business, of which is show business, is the show must go on. The #2 rule is the show will go on. So I bring that to you because after you come out and say that publicly, you think you've done enough, you pull your oars out of the water. If they were to reward that, look what would happen. Carla's done a fantastic job. She has not won as many fights in a row as Sean Strickland. So if it's good for Carla and it works, I guess Strickland can never fight again and wait for a title shot
We
there.
will unite the
Good as
Freljord.
Strickland has done, he's tied with Vincent Luque. So it works for Carla. Sean's going to copy it. I guess Luque's there, and Luque is one behind Leon Edwards, and this is on the top of my damn head. I don't know how many fights they've won. I don't really care. If you're the true #1 contender, it's not going to make a damn bit of difference.
Peace
If you are
requires a
truly the
steady
next
hand.
best thing to the world champion, and I bring in the next best thing to you, as long as we have that order right.
An enemy has been slain.
Problem at all. It's the same problem the #2 guy doesn't want to fight the #11 guy. Why not? What would possibly be the problem? And we can suspend
Three
things only
sisters
so
are
far,
a
but once
myth
it's
that has
debunked,
strangled all people. It is a tale of
because
failure.
I'm using this on something light, but I see people make
Guide
mistakes.
us.
I mean, it comes back to a big fight. So it's going to get Let's back it up to when
Glory
that
to
was
the
fresh and
Boulder
hot.
Bear, the thousand-pierced
imagine
beast. Give my people the
that George
resilience of your
Mosbrell and
wilderness
Leon
and
get
the
into a
fury of your
backstage.
storm.
Which is illegal, for one. That was illegal action taken. But let's imagine that it happened and somebody filmed it, which they did. And then imagine the UFC turned around and booked it. Message through the industry. Go get into something with somebody and make sure everybody films it. And you can have a mega payday down the road.
Your team has destroyed a turret.
Which is glaringly obvious. One that's so obvious I should not have to point it out. But I do point it out because people are trying to counter me. They try to counter me to say, but still, that's not what they did when John Jones got into it. That's not what they did when Lennox Lewis and Tyson got into it. That's
An
not what they
enemy
did
has
when
been slain.
Connor and the Bus got into it. You're wrong. You're wrong on all of those points. Those fights were signed. Those fights were upcoming. Two of those things happened at a press conference just prior to the fight. And I bring
Move quickly, position well, and the battle is won before blood is drawn.
With Monroe and Leon, this absolutely was not rewarded. 10 different things between the two of them have happened between the three-piece, the soda, and when those guys finally get under the unified rules. It was not signed. I anything you
The ice is not clear. It is
you
surrender.
mean as a negotiation. You're trying to negotiate. You know what you're doing. But if you want to start negotiating with your partners, they have to play the game out. If you punch, they'll counterpunch. They'll let you go first. Behave like gentlemen. In all fairness, they take all the bad rap, all the how could it be possibly done. They go second. They let you go first. They have to be very tactical.
Today,
Very
the fate of our people hangs in the balance.
If you are the #1 contender, or if you are the best in the world, fighting anybody underneath you should matter. My friends and my put together a only comes here in the month of October. Here's the deal. You will get a free 30-day supply of their enzyme supplement called Masszymes, plus a free copy of their book, From Sick to Superhuman, and a free copy of their brand new it covers small shipments. It's an incredible deal. Masszymes is a powerful, better class, daily But remember, a 30-day supply of Masszymes is not all you're going to get with this special offer. The book, From Sick to Superhuman, October. So level of ridiculousness that times he then publicly called him out. He upped the ante with something like he's got to change his name. Some level of ridiculousness that only Jake Paul could think of. It was great. Tommy Fury's a decent boxer with a big last name. In all fairness, he's a decent boxer. He's an up-and-comer. Not dismissing this guy at all. In the world of, he's a decent boxer. Right, Paul wants somebody with a name, and even if it's a last it's unlikely. Odds makers are going to put him in favor. Use DraftKings, by example. Once those comes out, now it's right, but that's just because of the way you move a line, and he has so much support. Hold that thought. My point is, it's a hard match, and what does this mean for Tyron? Now, I've always been light on the idea that Tyron would be. I'm right on it. Now, Tyron's a friend of mine. He would tell me if I asked him privately. I haven't asked him. Call him right now. Tell him. I don't think he did. But I heard it. I heard it. I don't remember it perfectly, but I remember it a little bit. And Tyron Woodley putting it on his fingers simply does not satisfy the curriculum or the demeanor or the time frame that those guys agreed to. I don't think Tyron did it. I think Tyron was having fun with that, but in his spirit wrote, Tyron didn't do it, and I think it was wrong, and that's what they agreed on. Tyron Woodley, 30 days supply of Masszymes is not all you're going to get with this special offer. The book, From Sick to Superhuman, and a free copy of their brand new supplement. It's a 30-day supply of Masszymes. Plus a free copy of their book, From Sick to Superhuman, and a free copy of their brand new supplement. It's an incredible deal. The book, I'm not weighing a decision here, but I am going to be
I
the
dream
final
of the
judge
day
on this
after
eventually.
the tribes are unified. I
Including
dream
if
of
I have
no
to get
longer
Tyrant
needing
and
to lead.
Paul on a split screen and they can both make their arguments. I will decide. One of them well. One of them's out around here. I do not believe that Paul is doing good. I'm not friends with Tyrant. I'm not friends with Paul. Tyrant. Right. Based on what I have right now. But I remember there was something specific, like it must be showing if you're in beachwear. I took beachwear to mean the
My people know
Nobody
only
told me
cold
beachwear
and
means this
hardship.
is concealed.
I would
Said it had to be the Knights of War. On Pirate's side, the initial bet was made that it was no time. We gotta get this tattoo business settled before anybody thinks that
Avarosa
Jake
guide me.
before anybody thinks that Tyrant is a two-for actually did it. I don't think so. My own opinion. And if Tommy Fury is going to fight Jake, I think that's something to look forward to. Because when I tell you that
I
Tommy's
will
a
not
good boxer,
allow us to be divided.
he's
We are
good by
one.
boxing standards. Boxing, you know, if you are into the sweet science and that's what you do and you've done it your whole life, and this is a second generation guy. And don't forget about old man Fury. He's a boxer. Your brother's a boxer. He's good compared to a guy.
No one escapes
I think
winter.
that we're gonna have a little bit of fun. I think there's gonna be something interesting.
Swiftly now.
I think that perhaps Chael gets a little credit here because I have told you guys before anybody else, Jake is legit, at least in his own mind. What he says he's going to do is not just to move the needle. He will get in there and back it up. I don't know that beating Tyron Woodley was as impressive as the mere fact that he stepped in there with a going to go after Tom. It's a big, beautiful paycheck. Something great to market. Get his name. I mean, Fury needs to thank him. He does. But let me get to the bottom. I will be the final decision. I will be the final decision on this entire bet. Did one of them well? I'll get down to who it is. First, let me Do you shave, or are you one of the weird beard guys? I shave every day. If you don't know Harry's, now you do. Harry's is different from other shaving companies. They craft high-quality, long-lasting blades with durable weighted handles. If you enjoy a close, comfortable shave, look no further. You no longer need to choose between a great shave and a fair price. With Harry's, you get both. Refill blades start as low as $2. That's a no-brainer. If you're new to shaving or have finally decided to get rid of that ridiculous beard, Harry's is offering new customers their starter set, which includes a 5-blade razor with a weighted handle, foaming shave gel with aloe, and a travel cover, all for $3. There's never been a better time to try Harry's. I coach, trainer, people within his team. It's really none of my business. I find that I keep inserting myself into Francis's business, though, but when you're a fan of the sport, if you're a pundit in the sport, the heavyweight championship is coveted. It's special. That's the belt Muhammad Ali had. That's the belt Hogan had. That's the belt The Rock had. I mean, there's something there to that heavyweight championship. Francis, when he was talking with Ariel, said he felt very disrespected by the UFC. What Francis is talking about is the fact that they did an interim championship. He's saying, look, I'm the champion. Now you've gone out and watered down my achievement by putting a belt that looks very similar to mine on a guy in my weight class. That's Francis's point. Now, one of the reasons why I wouldn't be my typical dick of a self and come out and scold Francis, as I believe I'm understanding Francis more. I believe that I'm getting him more. And Francis and I had a face-to-face one time ever, but it was at the PFL. It was very quick. But I learned a few things about him. I learned it by looking in his eye. I learned it by the tone of his voice. I learned a few things about him. I'm looking at him differently now. If an angry Francis with a chip on his shoulder is the best version of Francis, nobody should try to take that chip off his shoulder. His coaches should not. His managers should not. The UFC should not. Fans should not. I most certainly would be out of bounds. And I know guys like this. You guys know I'm a big amateur wrestling fan. We have a guy right now named Jaden Cox. Jaden is a victim. Jaden has been abused. Jaden has been mistreated. But he's believed that for a number of years and has yet to leave the country and not bring us home a beautiful shiny medal. Chip on his shoulder, Jaden Cox is the best Jaden Cox. I think a big part of my own career with that same chip. I was at Team Quest. We had multiple world champions. I knew on a daily basis at 3 o'clock where I stood in this world, I couldn't even get signed to the organization. I was not a contender. I was not a pretender. I was a dreamer, showing up every day, trying to get a break. It was one of those things, and it created a frustration. So if Francis is something he's frustrated with, but he's getting the results that he's getting, I don't know that you want to correct it. The other side is where I categorically disagree with Francis, and I want Francis to be real careful before he creates an enemy. And one thing that happens when you get a little bit of run, you get a little bit of stroke, a little bit of recognition, a little bit of fame, a little jing-jang in your pocket, is guys change quickly. Again, I came from Team Quest. You guys have heard of that gym. We were legendary. In all fairness, we were legendary. Every bit as legendary as the shootbox gym. Very big deal. Nothing divided our team more than the Ultimate Fighter. I have one teammate to this day that went on the Ultimate Fighter and is still my teammate. No one came back. And we had major ends. You remember the first ever Ultimate Fighter, Randy Couture was the coach. Remember that season was Randy versus Chuck? That whole Forrest and Stephan match was predicated on Chuck and Randy being the coaches. So we had a major end from Jump Street. Then Randy still knows all the people over there, the producers and the talent agents. He knew exactly who to get in with. So Team Quest had a major participation throughout the series of the Ultimate Fighter. No one came back except one guy. He even left. He left for many years. He has since returned. Nothing divided us more. Why? Well, all of a sudden the guys that were hungry like me, that were trying to get their break like me, that were working to be champions like me, were on TV. They were recognized. When you start to get recognized on TV, and whether you've come in to success or you're on the cusp of coming into success, nothing will change in that. You do not quit having scammers and leeches coming to you. You just have access to a higher level of scumbag. This scumbag will show up in a three-piece suit and take you to a beautiful lobster meal instead of the scumbag showing up in used Adidas and taking you for a cheeseburger at noon. It's the same guy with the same plan, which is to somehow latch on to you. The very first thing he has to do, it's the art of war, is divide and able to conquer. So he will get in your ear if he's a manager. And he will quickly tell you all the things that you should be getting and how stunned he is that nobody's told you this before. You will run inside of him instantly. You have to. And coaches I told you this. Come out and be an You have to. It's your opportunity. Nothing divided us more than the Ultimate Fighter. I only bring that to you because I'm very, very aware of the psychology of getting exposed to something positive. Having people around you telling you things, pulling you in different directions. They must survive and able to conquer.
To the briny deep.
So if you're somebody that has absolutely nothing, You've now made it into the UFC, got recognized, made it to main event status, made it to world title fight status, got absolutely dominated, and they let you return to it again against the same opponent. Oh, and by the way, have given you a disclosed $2.7 million. It would seem to those people. It would seem to any. Wow. To be the person who came over here with nothing, has made it to the highest ranks, failed miserably, and was allowed to return against the same opponent. I mean, look, if they don't believe in you, they sure as hell aren't going to put you in there with a guy who you fought for 5 rounds and you didn't win a single one of them. In all fairness, that was a tip of the hat. That was a tip of the hat. Main eventing pay-per-views. Main eventing on ESPN. Paid the bonuses. Put the belt around you. Offered all their main events on pay-per-view that's going to come with other big, beautiful stuff. And you're now telling them no and believing that they have somehow wronged you. I don't want you guys to pass judgment on Francis. I used to do that. And then I met him. It's different. It's different. Athletes have to put themselves in whatever situation they believe is best. And Francis, not for nothing, is a survivor. Can we give him that? If you've heard the Francis Ngannou story, which is flat inspiring, the guy's a survivor. So if he's putting himself in a position, and some guys, they got to be a wounded animal, and they got to put themselves in a corner. A wounded animal backed into a corner is one of the most dangerous things you could ever come across. You must always give your enemy a way out. Remember that. You're going to have enemies in life, business, relationships, or combat.
All the world in one arrow.
Position where they're cornered. Because now they only got one choice, okay? But if Francis mentally believes that's when he does his best work, and that's what he's attempting to do, great. Why should we tell him? He's the champion of the world. But if he sincerely in his heart feels that somebody saw the story, saw the look, saw the skills, and didn't believe in him when they're using him in their most marquee spots, that would just be incorrect. And Francis talked about, I should be able to go box. I for sure am going to run my UFC contract out. And I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how many matches he has left. But he's going to run it out so he can go over and box. Go multi-millionaire. He's going to go over and box where the real money is. Francis Ngannou is worth nothing in boxing. Conor McGregor is worth nothing in boxing. Israel Adesanya is worth nothing in boxing. That's not completely true. However, the UFC champion is. And that's what these guys are missing. Conor McGregor does not fight Floyd Mayweather for the purse that he got. The double UFC champion does. Francis Ngannou does not go and fight Tyson Fury in a huge boxing match. The UFC heavyweight champion does. And that's where the disconnect comes. And that's where the lack of understanding and the lack of gratitude is nauseating. And it is infuriating. But I'm not Francis's manager. I'm not his team. This is their job. But if they've assessed their athlete and they came to the conclusion that pissed off Francis is the best Francis, keep him right where he's at. Keep him right where he's at. But we do all need to be very clear. If you think that you're going to have a contract with a promoter and that promoter does not have the right to participate and do everything within his power to get a return on investment, you're
I've got a winning
you're
smile
wrong
and
from a legal
quiver
standpoint,
for
but even from
salvation.
an ethical
Get to it.
are unreasonable. If you believe you have met a promoter and an organization who has given you opportunity, that's the only thing they can give. That they gave you an opportunity, and you are not grateful and you're not appreciative, and you feel it's appropriate to turn the gun back on them, then your advisors and your inner circle had better be careful, because when a person tells you who they are, believe them.
30 seconds until minions spawn.
This video is brought to you by the Ridge Wallet. Guys, this
Is my
wallet is
bounty
incredible.
really as strong as 14?
and then
coming
awkwardly
to.
bulge out of your back
How
pocket.
do you do
It goes
this?
into your front
Heaven's
pocket and
always
it will seriously
watching.
change your whole pocket game. If you've moved on from the flip phone, don't you think it's time to let that 90s style wallet that your dad still uses behind? Ridge wallets hold to 12 cards, plus all
Minions
the
have
cash.
spawned.
Choose from over 30 colors and styles, including carbon fiber and burnt titanium. John Jones came out in a tweet, and he said it's
All the
funny
West
to me
on one
how
arrow.
all of you people could take something you know nothing about, make it the worst thing imaginable, and have it become a reality. I did not hit my fiance. My daughter woke up after our conversation. I'm not going to hire a publicist. I'm not going to go on a search. This didn't happen. Well, I don't want to be one of those people.
A
And if I'm
mechanical
in with the
angel for an
terrible
age
person,
of gunslingers.
make something up about somebody that was
How
terrible and then come out and act like it happened. I don't want to be that person. I don't want to influence you guys in that way. But I think we should band together that we don't do that. Let's look at what we know, okay? We only know what we have been told. We were told by John Jones himself one day after this that a deity known as the devil made him do it. But he is going to make what the most worst thing in his life was positive. He's not going to drink again. He has brain trauma. The conjunctive combination of brain trauma and alcohol makes him do things he wished he didn't. These are his words, not mine. On his Instagram because he is now saying nothing happened. We have a guard who is a third party that does not know the baby mama or the child. Believing that closer has blood on her clothing, her shirt, her scarf. So we have an admitted. I don't want to.
Tidy up the place down here.
We work this with the evidence of the admittedly drunk John Jones. His own words, I had a communication, his words, not mine, with baby mama. That does not mean she was struck. I agree. We do not have evidence of this, but these are the claims. The sweet, underage
Pardon me for any
An
acts
ally
of
has been slain.
confrontation is in tears on the floor of a casino asking a stranger with a badge to please call the police on her father. The father, a drunken something happened to him at 5 a.m. that he blew out. He did not. He blew out.
forceful reclamation.
What?
Sights unseen.
We don't have tremendous clarity from the fiance or the donor. The fiance said her lips were dry. It's the desert. My lips got dry. Started bleeding all over my shirt. Okay. I can't say different. But a confrontation also. There was the work of the deity known as the devil. These are John's words, not mine.
Don't you move your
Not
ears.
surveillance, not opinion. John's words. The worst thing that had ever happened is going to cause a life-changing event where he's going to, an alcoholic is going to walk away from alcohol. His words.
Expel their evil.
So what is it that deity known as the devil did, according to an Instagram page, put out by him that still exists today? I'm asking a question. I'm not answering. Then placed in
An enemy
handcuffs
has been slain.
by a four-man Las Vegas team who was sober. His next third party, at which point he commits a officers to get out of the cup and engage in a fight. While on video, it has not come out, but it will. We will get to see this whole thing on police cam video. And Ellie, that we are making things up. That we're imagining
The will.
that his daughter saw absolutely nothing in a confrontation that did not happen, even though he said that it did happen. At a time when he was so drunk, he's having a hard time remembering it because of brain trauma, to the fact that he was not alcohol use.
I can outdraw it.
And how dare
Mechanical
you
or otherwise.
make something up? His coach, who, as the coach said, Errol Hawani, looks at John Jones as a brother.
One hell for man and another hell for devil.
This is the same coach John hid under the ring to hide from USADA. John Jones admits it happened. Like
Ally has been slain.
yes, in fact, he did hide under
And
the ring.
monsters all answer to a higher authority.
By yours truly. The code publicly came out knowing it happened and lied on John's behalf. Jail.
Let's get you in the ground.
You lied for your brother. John as a brother. And even said so has now come out. John, he may not
Salvation requires a very fast draw.
reason you believe this is what the big guy is. I gotta get some cold water, I gotta splash it in his face, I gotta get some sense on him, this will help. Or reason two. And before you think we're all
It
gonna
was
have
men
to
who
guess,
once
because of
stormed
course
the
everybody's
gates of
going to
heaven,
say
and
that.
it is
We don't
men
have
who
to
must
guess.
be
Once
saved in
said
spite
coach
of it.
comes out on a PR tour and tells the world, I told him he can't come back. You only need the world to know of a conversation that distances yourself with a perceived cancer if it was bad for you and business. And that's what happened. So now we have our answer.
A land washed in devil.
And thought the world needed to know. Never seen it. A manager was very close. Never came out. No. My absolute most high-profile
Good
client
has
who
a
I
way
have
of winning
used
out, even on
to
the
get other
frontier.
clients is no longer. All to know that.
An enemy has been slain. An enemy has been slain.
Retribution is at hand. Heaven won't fight
A couple of things.
until you all came along and
Fighters don't
corrected
make
us.
Shut down.
I just don't think he's ever going to fight again. Simple as that. You just see it as a waste of time. You don't think
Absolutely.
it's ever going.
Now there's a funny word.
Makes up as though it's true. Admittedly, who has said very little other than it was the worst thing that ever happened.
You must
Changed
reconcile.
the way I live. At a conference. I have security guard. you think I'm going to believe?
Atone!
Official prediction for Norma versus
slain an
Aspen.
enemy.
Guys, I'm going with Norma.
I'm
going
afraid you'll
against
find heaven is empty.
DraftKings.com. The
Sorry.
experts in the field have Aspen Ladd as a
The
favorite.
soul
Plus
of the
130 in
prairie
fact.
lives
Let me
on.
tell you why this is a problem. In full disclosure, I do not know who Norma is. I'm sure she's a perfectly nice lady and up-and-coming fighter, but if she walked in here and slapped me, I would not be able to tell you that. I'm just simply not familiar with her. Now, she must be pretty good. What's my clue? What's my clue? What's the fighter? Every fighter knows. You get two fighters together, when they walk out there, they both know who's going to win the fight. Now, the one that knows that they're not going to win the fight still wins their call. Cross their fingers and fight has something against 145 pounds. She is clearly a featherweight.
An ally has been slain.
Because she is this weight.
An enemy has been slain.
Fighters
Double kill.
in the UFC. She may have missed
Ain't
more
I
times than anybody in
sore?
history. Nobody's missed it 3 times. If I'm wrong, it's 4. What does that represent? You can't make 135 pounds. You can't make 145 pounds. There's not a discussion on what weight you are. Whatever weight you make. Okay, she's a featherweight, but she didn't want to do it. Now, I'm not looking to put that flat down. I'm trying to tell you what I'm doing with Norma.
I don't
Even
believe
She's a great fighter. She's ranked number 3 in the world. She's a great fighter. She does not believe she's a featherweight. John Jones is almost 2 years away from the bench press and to do some power striking moves. Wait,
Killing spree.
Miocic is rumored that he's doing the same thing.
All the rest has one arrow.
Before I'm going to be ready, I must, and then you fill in the blank. For most fighters, it's go through a training camp. It's diet, it's study, it's game plan, it's work with my coaches, it's get so much rope work,
A
jump
mechanical
so many
angel
ropes.
for an age of gunslingers.
One of the
How
things
thoughtful.
when a fighter goes into a weight class that they didn't want to be in, and Aspen fought tooth and nail to not become a featherweight. They want to go checking the box of I've got
Enemy killing spree.
Another complete walker on behalf of the bounty hunting
because she's
industry.
so clearly a
Shut
featherweight,
down.
but refused to do it. I'm guessing that she psychologically has something to do with it.
A fine day for a tournament.
About her physiology girl. You're a fellow fighter. You don't know who they are. In all fairness, Norman is doing something not great. I did not even know it was a main event. I was offered the match. I said, wait. Well, now I have
Advise you to
more.
quit grabbing at me with
I have
your
more
little
clues that
demon
she is
claws.
not in
Ain't
my round.
proper.
I know that because she said she didn't know it was fire. Now, is there gamesmanship then? Maybe. I would be a victim of it if there is. I don't have her word. It was 5 rounds. Knew what the game was.
Enemy has been slain.
Girl. was 137 pounds 3 weeks ago. Like those are put on. And I'm going to Leon is hospital. What's on the line? Where are those two fighting? A little bit of a redemption story for Leon. Leon said as recently as 5 days ago he didn't need redemption. A little bit of a payback for something that happened 3 years ago. And it seems like is it another one? Golden Hospital is not return to the championship. Usman's holding that bell. Is it a number one contender fight? And we have seen fights before where yes, it is 4-1.
Holy day!
Not a semi-fight, not a bracketed situation. If this guy wins again, he will go largely what happened here, at least in this regard, but I am right. Will not be fighting
Pestering me.
However,
Cartoons aside.
so is it a number one contender?
Don't.
And if it's not, why are we doing it? Now hold that thought. Nate is said to be getting busy very soon. Nate Diaz. I know the current winds are blowing towards Luque. What would they be fighting for? If you beat Nate, can you go right into a title fight? If Nate gets a win over Luque, who's won, I believe, his last 7 in a row, can Nate qualify for a title fight? Or can we all just agree that the title's not on the line here? Because if the title's not on the line in 2 of the biggest welterweight matches we've made, then who is the preferred number one contender? Now, that answer is glaringly obvious if you have the defensive God Chimaev. And for any middle right in front of him, and everybody's laying the red carpet out to get the replacement of Stephen. Who better to replace the guy
I ain't doing this for fun.
And if you think that's inappropriate, it's not. It's exactly where Chimaev was.
An enemy has
he
been
got sick
slain.
with a pandemic that wasn't
Ally has been slain.
Ahmed Chimaev, to remind you guys, was scheduled to come in against Leon. Leon has now won his last 8 fights. At that time, he was the number 3 ranked fighter in the world. I don't know where Leon sits today, but I know he's no worse than 3. He's got to have a beautiful number next to his name. Chimaev had no ranking. From home, all of a sudden he's in the top 10. I think it was number 9. All of a sudden it makes him number 3, and it was rumored that would be a shot, not necessarily to help Chimaev, but to definitely. You don't deserve anything, and this isn't fair, right? Welcome to life, but he certainly was qualified. Is a very suitable hungry, but they all seem to find a reason to not go after Chimaev. I've heard wonderful things about Chimaev. I'm sure you have too. I haven't seen it. I mean, in all fairness, the guy's 3-0 and never left the first round. There's not enough footage out there for me to gain or garner enough information. And in 2 of those 3 fights, he did it with the takedown. All right, great stuff. Right, all fairness, I'm not really sure but you are in unison with singing the same song about finding some reason to not challenge
Don't
it.
blame me for this.
One point because of a ranking. Or one point because he hadn't proved himself yet, or whether he's fighting a middleweight part-time. It just got really weird. We get it.
An ally has been
Just come out and say,
slain.
man, this guy's a problem. Let somebody else deal with it. I've been here a long time. I've dealt with plenty of problems. This is somebody else's.
This is my
But
gun.
then you got guys floating around like don't burn.
Righteous
He does not give a damn about
Back, ye
anything that I
demons.
told you. match.
monster's all transferred to a higher authority.
You've got to just about to be defended, which means a new opportunity opens up for a #1 contender, and the fights that are announced or even rumored to be announced, we can all agree are not enough to draw you, at least historically speaking, into that championship fight. Focus is going to Jemiah. That's my prediction.
Salvation requires
That's
a
all we ever
very
have, guys.
fast draw.
All we can ever do is sit back, look at the pieces on the board, do our second guess. If I was a 70s counter, I'm guessing Jemiah with one more defense cycle and one more great performance is going to be right back in those talks. Now, all that would do is, again, we don't talk about deserve, we don't talk about fair, but it would qualify him for. Jemiah beats another guy over 2 different weight classes, and none of them get out of the first round. 3 guys up, 4 guys down, all inside of 5 minutes. But not for nothing, he's going to put those 4 for 4 down inside of 5 against you, not losing in 5 years, or you winning 8 in a row.
An ally has been slain.
Not to mention, he's in a certain part of the world.
Your sins weigh you down.
Can you say that about yours? Disagree with me. If you disagree with my message, I won't hold it against you. But if you do agree with me and you can't figure out why you're not getting that opportunity, just say his name. Guys, this video is sponsored by our friends at Native. Native makes incredible body care products, including deodorant. Ooh, that's nice. Toothpaste, sunscreen, and body wash. And you know what? I've been using their plastic-free deodorant. It's the same formula as their regular deodorant with much more sustainable packaging. Made from paperboard. Here's what I like. It's not sticky. It dries quickly and lasts all day, even after exercise.
The soul of the prairie lives
Native's
on.
deodorant is made with familiar and simple ingredients, including coconut oil and shea butter. It's aluminum-free and paraben-free, and yes, it works. If you want to know what Uncle Dale smells like, it's a beautiful combination of eucalyptus and mint. I highly recommend you give it a try. Native offers a wide range of choices, with new limited edition scents being released all the time. Make sure you check out Native's new limited edition Coffee House collection for fall. 3 plastic-free deodorants are normally $39. But if you use my link with promo code
Heaven is empty and all the angels are gone.
$29.
Not much for a lady to do, but clean
It
up
was
the
before
rest.
my lifetime. Muhammad Ali had his last fight the year I was born. But I still know all of it. I still know about those guys. I still know about the knockdown, the iconic picture of
Your
Muhammad
team
Ali.
has
Whether
destroyed
you
a
know or not,
turret.
if I showed you the picture of Muhammad Ali standing over the fallen body with his hand up in the air, you go, yeah, I've seen that picture.
The hydraulic pump was
Wasn't it?
nice hair, but modern years. Lights it on.
Only because my Uncle Mel won a gold medal. Sports just doesn't really work that way. Can you relate, or are we even close where we can relate to this? But I heard all about Muhammad Ali, and I knew all about this battles.
Devotion is equal. Good aim.
Muhammad Ali lived the sport. How can you stand up there in front of the world? The opening
ally
ceremony
has
of
been
the Olympic
slain.
Games is a tremendous event. It's got all the pomp and circumstance you could imagine. Nations, governments
well-directed
fund it
arrow
and
and
oversee
some
it
light
because
prayer.
they know the world is watching.
Hidden
Reach out. It's a
problem.
special moment in Muhammad Ali's chosen life force playing for these Olympics. It's a big deal. Joe Frazier came out, said when I saw him, fighting that body of fire, I could have pushed him in. Now, this was in 1990, referencing a rivalry that predated my existence. And these
Your
were old
turret has been
men,
destroyed.
one of which, in Muhammad Ali, was suffering from a physical not just
Enemy killing
not just
spree.
that's not nice.
Your turret
This is
has
a
been
fight game. We
destroyed.
do things that are mean and not nice every day on
Enemy
purpose.
Your inhibitor has been destroyed.
No other. I
Your
played other
inhibitor
sports.
has been
You
destroyed a turret.
don't even know who the
Your
hell you are.
turret has been
Something you
destroyed.
do.
Your turret
Combat,
has been
you know
destroyed.
that person. You will know them forever. And it does not matter if you stomp them or they stomp you.
Defeat.
Expect for sure that you will go through life with that person. For Joe Frazier to say about Muhammad Ali when neither of them was fighting, neither of them if you just sincerely had something in your heart that was dark towards that person. So it was weird. That's all I say. I'm not putting down the late Joe Frazier. I'm just sharing with you that one moment. It stayed with me since 1996 because they were old men. They were removed from the sport. They were not looking to fill up Madison Square Garden. They were not looking to move commerce in any way. I thought they were weird. What's the tipping point? You guys agree with me, and I think that you do, probably unanimously. What is the tipping point? Because Conor McGregor last night went after Khabib via Twitter. He deleted it, which was strange. I don't like the delete business. He deleted it, and he went after Khabib. You have one athlete who is retired. You have another athlete who is broken in half. What's the difference to that or Joe Frazier wanting to push and watch Muhammad Ali burnt? What's the difference? Age? Khabib's only been retired for a year? What's the difference? Conor McGregor's broken in half. He can't get licensed. Not even trained for a period of time. Someday he could. I mean, is that what Joe Frazier was hoping for? Marcus's was going to go away and Triller was going to form and these two guys were going to get in there one more time?
Here's how I make a mirror seating chart for my clients. I absolutely love this ruler
weird.
tape. I use this for all of the guidelines.
A guy who doesn't have a license, who is not training, who is broken into pieces right now. Call that a guy
To the briny deep.
who also doesn't train, who's also unlicensed.
On my mirror. Then I use a Stabilo
Forget
all
about
pencil
me.
to draw my guidelines. This part is really tedious.
Forget about rude.
Next up, I use that exact same pencil to draw all of my
That's
calligraphy guidelines.
Do we agree?
Then I use my Sharpie oil paint pens in 2 different sizes, and I get started with actual names on the seating chart. This part is really slow and meticulous, but I have to.
Paul Felder hinted that he is considering a comeback. He has
Usually
not
I
come
put on
back.
one of my favorite.
Paul does a lot of triathlon, says that's really slowed down. He's been to
Mistake,
a
I
competition,
use
he started
rubbing
hitting mitts
alcohol or
again,
acetone
and
a
he
Q-tip,
is going
and
to
I just
go
take it
home.
off
That's a
and
quote.
restart. And then
I'm going to
keep
go
going.
in with Coach Brady, start working out a little bit,
Once
see
all
how I
the
feel.
names are in,
Great,
I switch
hold the
back to my
thought.
pencil and I do my outline
Paul
for the
Felder
table
for me.
numbers.
Can you guys agree? You want to talk about
All the world on
you're
one
missing Paul
arrow.
Felder on your top 5 list.
Permanently. And same thing with any of
But
the
why would
wording.
you-
So in this case, it says,
Why?
please take your seats.
Is it a cash grab? No, not for Paul. Do you
Next,
love
I
getting
draw
punched?
florals
Do you
to
love
fill in
punching
any of the
somebody
awkward
else?
spaces on the mirror, just to
Maybe
make it
not.
look
Maybe it's
prettier
the
and
training.
fill things in.
Because Paul does like a lot. Paul will make deals with himself, by the way. I'll work with Paul. He'll make a deal. He can eat a donut, so he's got to run a mile for every donut he eats.
Holding my phone.
But then he'll eat 5 donuts. But then he'll go run 5 miles, right? Like Paul, it's one of these
Then
things.
lastly,
You guys
I
do that
remove any
deal
of the
making and
tape,
play these
and I
games. He
use a
just
dry
likes hard
paper
work.
towel to
He
erase
thrives on
any of my
hard
pencil
work. He craves it.
guidelines. The paper towel
There's a little bit
removes
of
the
a
pencil,
unique
but
guy
not
in
the
that
oil
regard.
paint.
I'll tell you, every
And
fighter
there you have
who
it, a
retires
completed seating chart for my
either
client's
comes
wedding this
back or
weekend.
gets to where Paul is, which is they consider the comeback. All of them. Unanimous. It'll happen sooner or later. Whether Khabib actually comes back, much like the situation with Paul.
哎呀，人
yet to
讀
be
你讀，你讀到似打鼓
But
咁
he
樣嘅，
will
咚就
start to
咚
have
就
those thoughts.
唔用
He
這樣
will
子的，
start
你
to
聽我
have
讀一
those
遍啊，好吧，來
fantasies. Going back in
I
life,
don't know what you're talking about。
it's a weird thing to do.
嗱，我教你一個技巧，好不好？非常
If
簡
you're
單，
23, 24
把
years
所
old,
有這些 T
and you're going back to
變
your
不見，
old
不要
high
讀
school
它。
watching
嗱，
the
比方
game,
說這
and
個
you're，wearing
你剛讀什麼？
your letter
懂的。
jacket,
現在呢
it's weird.
就是了。之前讀什麼？
What？
現在讀什麼？非常好。這個呢？
About。
現在呢？
It could be for a
非常
side
好。
tournament.
你剛剛把這個讀成什麼？
Called the
Talking.
takedown
哎呀
tournament.
哎呀，沒有 feel。現在你把這個 K 呀變成梗，也就是 talking。對啦，來最後一個知識點。你剛才這個讀什麼？
You are。
哎呀，沒有 feel。現在直接把它變成揪耳。
中文啊。
中文。揪耳。好，我現在將你的所有技巧放在裡面，重新讀一遍，看看有什麼不一樣，好不好？來，1、2、3。
I don't know what you're talking about。
是不是不一樣啊？是不是標準很多啊？嘿嘿，我都說了嘛。想學更多的英語知識，記得關注我。來，繼續。
I didn't have any hobbies. I wish I had learned to play tennis along the way. Something like that. I think tennis would be my specific one. I wish I had learned, but I never did. This was just my sport. Learn from wrestling, learn from MMA, watch the events, eat with my friends, and my people, but it's also what I do every day. There was 4 hours of drive time. There was 4 hours of the day. And now the rest of the day you're tired, so maybe you do a little bit less, but you don't feel guilty for doing less because you're a little bit ran down, you're recovering for the next session, whether that's later in the day or first thing when you get up tomorrow morning. It's just one of these things that when that's gone, there's a piece and you're missing it. I was backstage at a Bellator. Josh Thompson, John McCarthy, and I, and Josh says to me, "Do you miss it?" And I turn my head, I look through the curtain, I see the cage set up, and I said, "Yeah, I miss it." And John McCarthy comes right over the top and he says, "What do you miss about it?" And I turned and I looked at John, and I just kept looking at him. I didn't say a word. And he said, "What do you miss about it?" That was about 7 months ago. I still haven't answered that question. But it's a real one. It's a very real question, and it's tough. It's hard. It's a death. When you leave, it's a death. It's a death of a career. But you're still mourning that loss all the same, and you're trying to come to terms with it all the same ways, starting with denial. Then starting by trying to convince yourself it was the right decision, and then eventually you get to the path of, I could come back, I could still do this. And even if you could come back and you could still do it, the question still becomes, why? And if you have an answer, and I'm not judging Paul, right? I mentioned Paul, but I'm going in a different direction now. If your answer is anything short of because I want to be and believe I still can be the champion, you're in the wrong place. There's a lot of things in life you can do as a hobby. There's a lot of things in life you can do for exercise. Combat just isn't one of them. It's just not. And if you still have that drive and you passion, you still want to go out and do that, and you're at the right age and you have the opportunity. Like John Jones, guys, I am not in the business of piling on. I strongly do not believe in kicking a guy when he's down. It's tough to say that a guy is down who was inducted into the Hall of Fame a week ago, is physically one of the greatest talents on earth, and prior to the induction in the Hall of Fame, he reveals for us that the purse for his next fight just went up.
Avarosa's glory I wish to recapture. It is our people's.
What part of this guy is he down? He's going to get a world title fight. Was guaranteed $5 million according to himself, and he just got a bump. He got inducted into the Hall of Fame. What part is he down?
Welcome to Summoner's Rift.
Then the strong must try the impossible. This is the oath I must
Winklejohn will
fulfill.
fall in line with Malky.
30 seconds until minions spawn.
To look, gotta have a stop.
Prepare yourself, you face an iceborn.
And whatever it took to get Wink to that conclusion, I bet that was very hard. Because it is the fight business. You fight through things. You stick together. You do it, you go on. It's one of these deals
Avarosa, guide me.
where I'm sure that was very tough. That's the point. I was smack the time that there's going to be tremendous pressure on
Minions have
their
spawned.
gyms, anything like the gyms that I came up in. Which is, yes, you have your fighters class, but you make your living on the kids
I am a war
class.
mother. I have given oaths to few.
I would have just
I have taken
hypothesized for
oaths
you
from
guys
many.
that this is a tough thing to have people to continue to come back. Now, when I talk to people from that gym, they say John never comes in anyway. Pops in 2 or 3 times. This is the story I'm sharing with you. This is the story. At some point, you have to do the right thing. Then try to splash some cold water on this guy's face, who apparently is not willing to learn from his lessons. Does not care when he's
I
dragged
have
down.
always hated that word.
Right, I mean,
It is
John
a
put a
worm
tweet
that
out on this and he
ruins
deleted
lives
it.
and murders
It was
innocent.
just disgusting.
It is a deceit and bringer
He said
of
it hurts
woe.
really bad to have one of my coaches who I respect so much turn away from me. For the rest of the coaches going for that fight with me, we continue. And then he deleted it. Now, the reason that tweet is disgusting is, use the word team.
Seek peace,
You have the most
but bring the
selfish guy
tools of war.
in sport. Using the word team is inconvenient. The embarrassment that he did to his team, the money that he's taken through 2 different suspensions, and now whatever this is, in conjunction with purposely removing yourself for 14 months on purpose. So your managers that would like to get paid, they don't. The
Hardbound
structure
and
is I get paid
Iceborne,
when you get paid.
Spirit
Or your
Walker and
coaches and your
Fireborn.
trainers, or your
All
workout partners that were all
Freljordians are
counting
my
on
kin.
something. You pulled the rug out on your own, unilaterally, of which you had every right to do. But you don't then get to come back and say we're a team. It doesn't work that way. So when someone finally speaks up, and
I was raised for war.
for
I
you,
am Iceborne.
this is all for you.
Enemy has been slain. Enemy double kill.
Hey, we're all in this together. It was just a really weird thing. And I'm a little bit confused. Ryan Bader made a comment today about John. First comment
My
I've heard
mother
from Ryan
loved me.
Bader.
She
Ryan has the
fought
right
and
to
died
opinion.
trying to give
As a
me a
double, I
better
said
life.
double, world
So
champion
I
and a former
fight
opponent
and
of
will
John.
die fighting to
And
give
Ryan
all
said it's
Avarosans
disgusting.
a better life.
His actions were disgusting. And anybody who puts their hand on this woman needs to be gone. Ryan Bader saying that represents the first person I've heard come out and talk about that openly, the way they truly feel. I have heard countless reports by fighters who will always hedge. Oh, he's a really nice guy. I sure hope he gets his stuff together. Well, which is it? If he needs to get his stuff together, then you believe he's guilty. If he needs to get his stuff together, you believe that he did it. But you're now saying that that's a really nice guy. Look, it doesn't get any worse than that. And I've been
Today,
confused
the
just
fate
as
of
a
our
human
people
being.
hangs in the
With
balance.
some of the dialogues that are just going around the world right now, mental health is a huge topic. It is an absolute hot topic. But to take somebody's bad behavior and then try to pin that on mental health, put it in the same category as people that were born with a disadvantage who need
The
special
Freljords
care.
shall unite.
Every time you do something bad. I know what I get drunk. A lot of people drink. JLP's not one of them. A lot of people drink. They don't come home and beat the hell out of their old lady in front of their children. And to find this constant crutch,
Brace
to
thyself.
lean and put something else on, instead of stepping forward.
In the Freljords.
Taking it on the chin. Here's what I did. You guys remember when John was trying to go through rehab? You guys remember that? It was straight up PR. Somebody talked him into it. He wrote a check, went to rehab, but then the employees of the rehab clinic leaked into the media
Peace
that it was out
requires
care.
a
John would walk into the front desk and sign in, which was what the rules were, and then he'd move to a different clipboard, sign out, turn around, walk back out the door, get in his car and drive away. He did this for weeks. He was in rehab for weeks. Now the story that they wanted you to believe is that he's locked down and in care. When they get caught, and they never actually said it, they just wanted you to believe it. But once they get
My
outed,
people know
it's
only
all-
full. I will
his thing gets reduced back all the way. That yes, they kept the money that he paid for it, but he followed the process. Sign in on this, sign out on this, and he's back in the car. He's doing this happen? There's athletes. I watched athletes do this to Simone Biles 2 months ago. There is an athlete on Earth. Take up a spot that only comes around every 4 years.
Do try to keep pace.
Take up a spot on a team and not compete
No one escapes
when you were
my aim.
physically able.
I do not seek the throne
Nobody
of
thought
Avarosa.
that was okay. But there wasn't an athlete out there that was willing to say it.
Reveal what is hidden.
Simone has too much power, apparently, within that sport. Or Simone's going to have a pro tour and she gets to pick who comes along with her. There was something along these lines, right? Follow the money every time. This is no different.
We are all kin.
But I was
kin.
stunned at
Blood
how many
of
people
blood.
didn't just say what it was. It was terrible. It was selfish. It was unheard of. It's the opposite of the whole reason your parents ever got you into sport in the first place. The opposite of what you become a parent, you will encourage your children to get into sport. To learn that camaraderie, to learn teamwork, to learn responsibility. To count on somebody else, but also have that person know that they can count on you. Nobody thought it was okay. And there was fighters that were asked about the Jones
When
situation.
I say
who I
Avarosa,
like.
I hear
I
my
don't mean I
neighbors
like them like they were
dreams.
nice to me. I'm nice to them. I mean, I like them. I respect them. Or close to. Respect might be a little tough. But right there, I appreciated these guys. I will look at them differently now. You don't have the balls to call out. Having a minor ask police to come because you're worried about what your father did to your
Together
mother.
we are Avarosa.
It's disgusting. And all of you who tried to hide behind it is disgusting. Only one in this thing, apparently. Sponsored by our friend at I made ritual vitamins part of my daily routine for the past several months, and I'm going off for it. I'm excited to share Ritual's new essential protein daily shakes that are designed to support the maintenance of lean muscle mass. This delicious shake contains all 9 essential amino acids, providing a complete amino acid profile, helping to build lean muscle mass. I've also found it satisfies my appetite. Ritual's Essential Protein Shake is packed with 20 grams of vegan pea protein
My
and keeps you
tribe
feeling
will bring
full.
peace to
There's
the
no
north.
added sugar or sugar
South
alcohol.
should
Wow. Justin Gaethje does not bet. I don't like him. But he's a damn good fighter. Very. Look, that's a big compliment in all fairness. Justin Gaethje does not throw compliments around, and now he's talking about Colby Covington, a guy that's not even in his weight class. And to share with you where I believe this is predicated from, is Gaethje is now the training partner of Kamaru Usman. And they've trained together for a period of time, as you may or may not know. But it is different than the first time Kamaru fought Colby. Gaethje was not there, just by example. Because you always have to ask yourself that when there's part 2. When you're having a rematch, it doesn't matter who it is, doesn't matter
We
what
will
sport it is, doesn't
unite
matter
the
what game it
Freljord.
is. When there's a rematch for the media to ask what's different, it's very, very real. And as we're getting ready for Usman and Colby, you guys don't forget, and I'll personalize, but this was the best, the hardest,
Our way.
the dirtiest, and the closest
The bow
fight
is my
I
will
have
given
ever seen.
form. I am it. It
There
is
was not
mine.
2 ways about it. Going into the 5th round, the 2. They had both been warned by the referee multiple times. And then even partway through the 5th round, it was razor thin until it wasn't, right? Kamaru ended up pulling away, but a lot of times the answer or the athlete being asked will try to form a narrative right there on the spot, right? So many times athletes do the best to answer the entire time they're given a message. Athletes really do believe, more than possibly any other group, of the laws of attraction of what you put out there comes back to you. So when I watch these athletes
A battle
work,
worthy
it's
of
very
the
hard
Freljord.
to always take them at their word. And they're not being dishonest. They're just creating on the spot what they wish the reality was. All right. This one's different because Kamaru Usman's at a new gym. Now, it's not his first time. If Kamaru Usman has left forward and gone to gym, we're going to be talking about it a lot. We're not talking about it because we made that one. Kamaru Usman is not going to pull out on their feet. Kamaru Usman has not lost a round, and don't think you can bring up Masvidal Part 1. He did not lose that round. The judges have some level of sympathy, which is a very real thing with judges. Well, it's not going to change the outcome of the fight. Let's just give this guy one. Usman's not even losing rounds. He's got it. We agree. If you look at Colby, the exact same thing happened for different reasons, but he still left his gym. Don't forget, guys.
I only need one shot. An enemy has been slain.
I will not allow us to.
An ally has been slain.
In terms of its size, in terms of the coaching, the workout part, the facility. But he didn't leave Florida. He found another good thing right nearby.
An enemy has been slain.
I mean, it's almost like he's training in his garage, which I don't think is the literal case. But he found a small gym. And the only thing he ever told me about this is, chill, I have the same workout
I will show
partners,
them the
and
power
chill,
of the transform.
I do not want to leave. I'm getting better, but a little more focus is on me. Okay. So now we got Kamaru, what's different, but we have the exact same answer for Colby. We've seen who's experiment work. We're wondering about Colby in the closest fight I have ever seen.
Let's see how close
With
they can
no
get.
exaggeration. I submit for you guys. Yes. I submit for you guys. If you remember that first fight, it was a
An
little
ally
bit of a
has been
surprise to
slain.
us, the viewer. The question coming into that match: who's the better wrestler? Kamaru Usman, who's the national champion in the Division 2 rank, Colby Covington, who's an All-American in the Division 1 rank. That was a real discussion, and nobody fully knew the answer to that. Nobody could fully quantify that, but they did have an opinion one way or the other. And you'll remember being in these types of discussions, or at least hearing. They didn't wrestle. And it wasn't a matter of Kamaru shut Colby's wrestling down or Colby shut Kamaru's wrestling down. They didn't wrestle.
The ice is not pain, it is surrender.
No one succeeded. Not it was countered and defended. They both, us the audience unaware, came to a conclusion on their own that the squeeze isn't working. Colby respected, ever admitted or not, but
We must
Kamara
press on.
respected Colby. If you ever go for a takedown, now, I'll give you guys some advice. If somebody goes, hey, I'm going to take you down, I must work on you.
Your team has destroyed a turret. Rampage.
You can do that until you think you've got the armbar on the guard and you're weak and you know these different things. Or you can never go to the jiu-jitsu class once ever and just not the reason I tell you that, if a wrestler takes you down,
Your
that is
team
the
has
single
destroyed a
greatest
turret.
energy exertion in all of MMA.
Unstoppable.
A wrestler must be able to hold you there and get a couple of good moves. You must. The wrestler knows it's going to be there right now. Never goes to that effort. I dealt with a guy like this in training. If you took Matt down, he would straight arm your head like a football player trying to block that. Football on your head, straight arm it. Block that. One thing you can keep wet. You hit the mat,
But our
completely
lives
different.
are our
Just
own.
the physics of it are completely different than if you hit it and bounce right up. And trying to take him down. I learned it from Horwich. I started doing it to other guys myself. I was impossible to hold down for parts of my career. I bring that to you because I'm trying to defensive man will not Why did I respect his wrestling so much? Why didn't I go take him down like I did everybody else?
Please warn the
Why did I
fire
do what I
breath. I asked for your wisdom, first build control. Here, reveal our way.
It's going to be very different.
An enemy has been slain.
That's a good strategy or not. I don't have a prediction. I'm going to tell you, Colby can just throw Kamara down and keep him there. Or Kamara can push Colby in the fence, throw him down, and then keep him there. I can't get that far into it. But I think they are going to clinch up more. I think they are going to lock up more. I think one of them
join us.
that goes for the takedown and wins those rounds where he can get the takedown or loses them because of fatigue. Don't ever forget what Mike said. You look for the finish. Not yes, and a bet that you'll make it on yourself before that referee ever.
Move quickly, position well, and the battle is won before blood is drawn.
Specifically, he is very, very quiet by Colby's
All that Frost touches, we know.
Well, without question, game that Colby understands this is his last shot, at least as long as Usman stays champion. Much like Masvidal.
I am Freljord.
Great guys.
Family. They are all. Open
An ally has been slain. Enemy double kill.
I think Colby Lane
An enemy has been slain.
not doing as much media. He will deliver for us the week of the
No
fight.
fate is written,
He will deliver in
except
about
by
2
us.
weeks. You'll start hearing from Colby again. But you'll remember the times when Stipe Miocic locked down. You'll remember the times that Conor McGregor locked down. Go back a little bit. There was a guy named Rico Rodriguez who absolutely locked down. Guys that have that type of focus and that type of understanding.
Has destroyed a turret.
Don't guess. All of us have to guess because we're never going to have the level of success in athletics.
Praise the leaders who unify us, forgetting it is only unity that matters.
You're less motivated, whether you want to be or not, you're less motivated to do something. I don't think
Your turret has been destroyed.
he is a genius. One of those things.
I was born into poverty.
Does he have a super
All Freljordians are.
get up and go in, or is he operate?
I dance on your waves.
Always like we're you wanna know who's How do you not listen to the smartest guy in the room? In all fairness. Particularly if he's a friend of yours and you have each other's phone numbers and you speak every now and then. How do you not listen to that? What would you say?
Enemy has been slain.
Why does he never ask me for advice? Stipe. I get asked about
You do not aim a bow at the target. You fire knowing where the target will be. This
Stipe will
is
fight for a
vision.
world championship again. I am not convinced that Stipe's best days are behind him. I fully acknowledge that there's a huge monster in the wasteland. He's got 40 pounds of steel on him. And part about flying.
I have seen things the southerners cannot
Who's a
imagine.
hard mountain? Cormier. A hard mountain. They're all hard mountains. Okay. Why do I bring it up? Because, guys,
Celestial fire!
you have a guy, let's call him John, who's gonna come into your weight class. The weight class where you're the greatest
Do
ever
not seek the
recognized.
throne of Avarosa.
Numbers and defenses prove. John's gonna come in. Either way. Shotguns at 1 in the morning.
Death was the
You're beat.
only possible outcome.
Now let's say Joe. Let's just call the guy guy John, random name, right? But let's just call him
An
John.
ally has been slain.
Gets an illegal issue. Not only is he openly this John character, a prick to the company,
Together, we are strong.
who would love to
Together,
see
we
things done,
are Avarosa.
but he now has a legal issue that impedes his ability to get a license, slows everything down, and embarrasses said company. It would seem, without anybody saying it, without anybody having to say it, is now going to be taken off the table. It seems, we don't have
Your
evidence,
turret has been destroyed.
but if you're strategically trying to make your play,
An enemy has been slain.
now. And these big conversation, at one point, this conversation never existed. It had already been had. And the golden ticket was called John. But now,
I dream
it
of the
looks like
day after
everything's
the
back
tribes
on
are
the table.
unified. I dream
So
of
we've
no
got a couple
longer
of pieces
needing
in
to
place.
lead.
Francis and Surreal. They're going to have to fight somebody. It would seem to me, obviously, Stipe's the #1 contender. He was just the champion. Of course, if he gets beat only by one guy, he's now he becomes the #1 contender. Of course he does. Simple math. So now we end up in the thing where we've got the interim champion. These guys got to take care of their business. They got to
I love my battles.
An enemy has been slain.
Contract, like maybe you've heard about in some boxing fights. I'm talking about the realisticness that this is a great match, or it's even controversial, and you got to run it back, right? Aljo and Peter, you just have to do it again. No is the answer, but Stipe's willing. So what's it matter? He's willing. The last time I talked to him, he's ready for John Jones. Now, I kept that from you guys. I thought she gave
What
me
is it to
private
lead?
information.
It is to lie.
But
It
she
is to
then
preach
came out, or
caution
Steve,
even when you
someone
are
within the
elated.
camp
It is
came
to
out
give
about a
hope
month
even
later
when you
and
feel
said,
none.
we're hearing John Jones. Oh, I think it was Dana was at a press conference and said, yes, we've offered Stipe and Jones, and Stipe's accepted, and John hasn't, but here we are. It would seem as right, because if you're Stipe, there's a few
Power of an iron fist.
He doesn't say enough. He doesn't say enough because he doesn't listen to me. But that is a very different fight for Francis. Stipe had several takedowns in their first meeting and would have had a takedown in their second meeting.
Today, an
Except
enemy
he
has
didn't
been
have the
slain. You
size.
have been slain.
I'm a much better wrestler than Francis Ngannou. Personalize it. Francis would admit that. That's a lot of man for me to get down, no matter how well I know the positions. Right? Size matters in some way. That's the same story for 2 years. Putting on the bringing us in on it when he's pumping the weights. Saw him at the Hall of Fame, man. He looked good. It's an interesting story. Stipe's got the same one going. Like whatever frustration
war
Stipe
mother,
has.
a
Okay,
chieftain,
great. John's
only
going to be
because
next.
no
and then
one
I'll
else
step
will
in.
do
I'm not
what
sure
must
that's
be
true
done.
anymore. Or they offered me and John, but John didn't want to do it. I'm not sure that's true anymore.
Anivia, guide us.
I'm not. I think there's room for conversation. I think there's an opportunity here. But it's like anything, you gotta strike. Don't always wait for your phone to ring.
I will not
If we
allow
were in a
us to be
court of
divided.
law and
We
Stipe
are
lays out
one.
his case, he's going
An enemy has been
to
slain.
fight. He's gotta fight back. He's got to get up. And if he doesn't want to do it, he can send a message to me. I'll do it for him. ask you a question from a psychological standpoint. Is it helpful to diminish your opponent before fighting? And when you have basic trash talk,
Do not confuse mercy for weakness.
Enemy killing
get
spree.
some money. Does that I'm gonna give you. What if you're right? I've heard people trying to get a fight saying, I will stop him in less than 2 rounds. And I always wonder as a customer why you think I'm
Our way.
But why would I pay
I hold
$50 for
above
7 minutes of
tribes.
action?
I hold my
When I
heart.
could have 25 minutes of action. Like, why do you think you stopping in 2 minutes? Maybe there's an answer. I'm just sharing with you if you do that it's a good thing. This got tested. This got tested on
Ally has been slain.
professional wrestling circumstance called WCW Ultimate Warrior taking on for Vince McMahon. It's the biggest match of all time. It was very interesting because the Warrior was the Intercontinental Champ. Hogan was the World Champ. You never had those guys wrestling. You had a whole division, a whole for the Intercontinental title, and a whole other one for the World title. You never told me where one guy got 2 straps all of a sudden. It just hadn't happened.
Our own.
So it's a very big deal when it did, and Warrior got over on Hogan. At that point in Hulk Hogan's career, Hulk Hogan had only been pinned clean 3 times ever. And the first one is before anybody knew Hogan was going to be a star. So Hulk Hogan in the modern era, when they're on television with the red and the yellow second grade, 3 times clean. Clean means where, like, the referee wasn't distracted and then some manager hits him with a steel
Pray we
folding
see
chair.
death's
A
approach,
clean,
so we
you
may
beat me
complete our
straight up in
labors
front of
and
the world
die with
3
our
times. It was
eyes
a very
open.
big deal that Hogan put Warrior over, which he didn't have to do. Hogan did it not only because it was best for business and Vince asked him, and they saw something tremendous in Warrior. Hogan also wanted a break. He was tired. On a personal level, anyway, hear that story he's over in WCW. He's running after
Was that your
the dude,
best?
and they bring
I
in
can
the Ultimate Warrior.
Your team has destroyed a
Warrior
turret.
Warrior wrestling.
Rampage.
Knowing it was live,
An enemy
knowing
has
they're
been
not going to take
slain.
the cameras off, knowing it's going into business. He didn't give a goddamn about everybody's back. How does it know? Where is
Victory!
tells the world, many of which weren't there. Many people were not even that they wrestled, and he informs the world. He's face to face with Hogan and tells him, just like the last time we wrestled, and I pinned you 1, 2, 3. Well, now Warrior's ruined it. He just told the world the outcome. Why on earth are you going to watch a movie or read a book if you know how it ends? It was a tremendous mistake. Now, even though that was scripted, the lessons from a psychological standpoint, and that's what I'm trying to ask you about, they still carry over. Is it lazy to say I'm going to kick a guy's ass? Yes. It is. Is it part of the game? Sure. Are you convincing him? Or are you trying to convince yourself? Yes, yes, and yes. You have the more creative challenge. And if you ever start to say this guy's only showing up for a paycheck, just by example, well, that's his job, dummy. Of course he's coming for the paycheck. If you say you're going to stop him, that actually got tested on accident back in the Mike Tyson days. They would bring in bums, in all fairness, to fight Mike Tyson. But Mike was also so much better, they wouldn't get out of the first round. And on a boxing card, much more so than MMA, where there's only one match. None of us know or even care to know the first, second, third, fourth, fifth fight on a boxing card. There's never been a card in history where the co-main event was worth a goddamn. You could not name a co-main event that you've ever seen or you ever look forward to seeing. That's the boxing model. But my point being, when it's main event heavy, and in the pay-per-view business, one guy's got satellite, he calls up 3 or 4 friends, they're kicking in some money, somebody brings the pizza, right, somebody brings the ice, somebody brings the soda. I only share for you that if you're getting together for this one moment, and in Tyson's case, it's less than 3 minutes because he's so devastating and so dominant, it's a bad thing. It was bad to the point that Don King, in conjunction with DirecTV, the top satellite provider at that time that carried Mike Tyson, had to come up and tell the world, we're going to charge you $50, same as always. But if Mike doesn't leave the first round, we will cut your bill in half. When you get your monthly bill, the computer said we will automatically cut that down to $25. They were worried that no one was going to watch Mike, and they were right. People were giving up on Mike. You get a party, you get everything together, you got the boys over, you got to clean your house, all these stuff, you have less than 3 minutes of action. It turned out to be a problem. So when somebody comes out, they think they're doing themselves a favor, and they say when they're going to stop their opponent, there's a time and a place, particularly if they're the underdog. If you're a dog in this fight, it's particularly relevant. Mike Tyson couldn't say those things. They don't tell anybody you're going to whip this guy's ass. We don't want people to know. We bring you bums, because that's what we do in boxing, but we can still fill up theaters. Because you two dum-dums that are going to hit each other aren't very much smarter than our dum-dum fans, so we're going to coordinate the plan with all of them. And people that are at home and have a satellite dish do have a different level of intelligence, so let's go cut a deal with them. I mean, it was the weirdest thing in the world, but it was Here we're going to go through this business. You got to study everything about it, and that is one lesson that was taught. I firmly believe there is a way to pick. I firmly believe there's a way to promote a fight, and they're not the same. The things that you would do and say to get the contract
to the briny deep
once you have the contract. Because you do always run into the problem when you're trying to talk tough of having audience members who believe you. If the audience believes you, there's nothing to see. George St. Pierre, the greatest fighter the sport's ever seen. And any discussion, quite frankly, is silly. George St. Pierre. Nobody could beat him. George could not.
All the world on one arrow.
The opponent himself, nobody could captivate the audience to believe anything was going to happen other than George was going to win. But opposite of everything we know about promotion, it's still sold. George was still a marketable, bankable commodity. Very rare. He's the only one where you know the outcome and you turn in anyway. But George didn't want that. And George would go to press conferences doing the opposite. The opposite, of course I'm going to beat this guy. I beat 3 guys that have beaten this guy. I haven't lost a round. I'm the world champion. He would never do any of that stuff. He would build up the opponent. And a lot of people thought George was doing that purely intrinsically to try to take pressure off of his own shoulders. That was a piece of it. You weren't wrong to identify that. The larger part is George thought it would be bad for business. Why isn't he? And quite frankly, George is right, historically speaking. Nobody has ever tuned in when they knew how it was going to end. There's only a couple of athletes in history, not just the fight game. There's only been a couple of athletes. Mike Tyson was one of them. Michael Jordan was the other one, where his greatness was so special, it didn't matter the outcome. You were expecting greatness, you were expecting dominance, and you're willing to pay and part with your time and money to witness it. George was cognizant of this, so George would always build the other guy up. Oh, he's got the most dangerous boxing boxing. I've been working with Freddie Roach. I'm going to try to counter that. He's got the most... George would go out of his way to build the guy. Opposite of what most guys did. Opposite of what I'm inclined to tell you to do. But it's what the biggest draw in the sport did. I can't give you the answers. I know them, but I can't give them to you. I just can't. You got to work for it. But I'm leading you. I'll leave you with one tip. Is the only one smart enough to have the sense that God gave geese to know to call out Strickland to give the headline and look like a
Oh, a non-subscriber. It's a shame what happened to the last guy who didn't subscribe. You monster.